What's good, everybody? We had a wildcard weekend. My name's Kanal, and I'm here with Adam.
Hey, everyone.
What you doing, dude?
I don't know. I'm just here. Unfortunately, Seahawks, didn't win the game, but I mean, my expectations weren't high. But other than that, had a nice, good, long weekend. And yeah, it was good. It's okay. How about yourself?
Oh yeah, I went out to, like I told you last week, I was out there in Scottsdale, which we were joking about me just checking out Kingsbury's house on Airbnb, but that shit might have actually been on Airbnb. He just
Oh,
that guy took a one-way ticket to Thailand and said, "Fuck this, I'm out of here."
oh man, that's I probably would too. I mean, hey, if you're making 7.5 million annually while being, not working, so I too will take a trip somewhere.
Yeah, no, and the fact, yeah, like you said, man still got money rolling in, and he's just out there fishing in Thailand or whatever you do out there.
Yeah, and then a quick thing, one thing that has been like a good for us at Mr. Epps, the Mr. Epps podcast here, we're on YouTube now.
Yeah,
Come find us on YouTube at Mr. Epps. Come see us. We got one of the episodes up. We'll, as we go forward, you're gonna see our episodes going up on there and maybe some other content. Who knows?
yeah, we're hoping that it'll grow. We started off uploading our full episodes, but we'll start chunking it up a little bit just to start spamming out the content out there because we talk a lot. We love to talk football,
You
and
might
we
you
want
might
to.
get you might get each of our think pieces if like the podcast can't hold all of what we want to say. It's gonna be Canal's think piece section, right?
Yeah, Kanal's thoughts. No one cares.
No one cares. But hey, we have up to like about 30 plus views right now. So hey, I'm gonna take, thank
Take
you
it.
for the love for everyone that came out, supported, that followed. Go ahead and go to that YouTube channel, come see our ugly mugs and just say hello and
Ugly.
like, I'm
Mama said I'm a beautiful boy. Okay, I'm a beautiful baby boy.
My mama did too. Are we both handsome, as they always say?
No.
No, not
No.
never.
Stay humble.
Stay humble, stay humble, stay hungry, right?
Yeah.
But in short, just hey, go ahead, like, subscribe, share it with your friends and stuff like that. And of course, hey, put some comments and questions down below and we can get to those. So
Yeah, and this is gonna be great because we could actually get some interaction. Coming out with the YouTube platform. It's a little bit more streamlined than the podcasting format, so we're looking forward to it.
and
But
we have a short.
we have a one short.
Yep, we have a short. That's hey, this is the start of many things, and because it's going to be interesting making those shorts. I think I was actually taking a crack at it. Didn't get the other short up I wanted, but it's going to change this upcoming week. But it's really interesting trying to get shorts up, though. I will
Yeah,
say.
shorts, reels. We'll try to get it all out there. We just put our ugly mugs on every social media platform we
I
can.
wasn't ready for everyone to see this ugly mug yet.
I appreciate you lining up the beard. You good to go?
Of course. So yeah, you want to just get into this good old fashioned Seahawks and talk about it? We have to talk about it at some point.
Yeah, well, obviously, but man, I don't want to. It hurts. But I
Yeah, me
mean,
neither.
it was what you let's break it down like we always break it down. Let's start with
Mhm.
offense. What'd you think?
Um, I love this little note I made for it. Like we had him in the first half. Not gonna lie, I kind of just switched up
You
the
know what I
meme for that
imagined
one.
when you wrote that down was Michael, like the episode of The Office where they're playing basketball, and where Michael's team is up, and he's like, "Stop, stop, I'm hurt." All right, we'll just call it what the score is. Oh, we're winning. I guess we won then. I was
Basically,
thinking that the whole time.
if we could have just stopped the game at halftime, it would have been a nice poetic way to end their season, and then of course we move on to the next round. But unfortunately, the second half got the best of us. So like some of the things I had was just yeah, the second half was getting what got away from us, especially when it came to frustration and execution for the offense. And my final thought for the offense is let's just go ahead and look for those centers, the center and guard the center and right guard that we need for the O line some
Yeah,
way.
we need to stop doing that random ass rotation. We were never even in Pete's post conference or Pete post the postseason press conference. Is
Mhm.
always like must see TV for a team that exits early because it's kind of like the tell all episode of any reality TV show like
Mhm.
that you see
Oh yeah.
there. We didn't get any sort of insight with regards to that. I think I didn't see that in the press conference, but it was a really weird thing that we saw throughout the season was that Gabe Jackson and I think it was Phil
Phil
Haynes.
Haynes. Phil Haynes, yeah.
we're pretty much evenly splitting snaps the entire season.
And I thought Phil Haynes filled in for Austin Blythe when he got injured, right?
Yeah, it was either him or Kyle Fuller. I can't remember.
Kyle Fuller. It was Kyle Fuller. Yeah, I
And
remember.
yeah, it's just one of those things. Like is it like a tell? Like, oh shit, Gabe Jackson's and we running the ball. Like,
Right, but I personally feel like Gabe Jackson is kind of on like his last some years of like for his NFL career because I can kind of see a little bit of a decline. I wouldn't say it's like a full on like get rid of him. He's out of here. I think he could still be serviceable, but I think we should still be in the market for a guard in the center. Now, if we go the free agent route, I just don't want us to do the cheap 1 year seven, like the 1 year vet discount,
which is
kind of
basically what we
thing.
got out of Austin Blythe, right?
Yeah, we got the vet discount, all right. The discount. We definitely need to kind of get past this Max Unger curse at center. He's been even Austin Blythe this whole season. He had his moments, but most of the time it's been bad.
Yeah.
So
How many
it's
times
one of
have
those
how
things.
many times you've called it? You've always messaged us in the Discord. How many times have you called out Austin Blythe just getting bulldozed by the other team's nose
Oh
tackle?
my god, like I don't know, especially in this later, like the last like what 6 games or so, he's been having a bit of a struggle, especially up against teams that have been struggling themselves to get a win. But here we are as the Seahawks struggling to beat like the Rams twice and all that type of stuff. So, it's not like I'm not saying I want to beat them like 49-0, although that would be awesome. But we only had like out of like those last what like 5 or 6 games, we only had like one complete game, but it was against like a team that they weren't going to have an off season and stuff like that. So, it's just one of those things. But hey, they did release part of the schedule for next season, so they will be coming to Dallas next year. So I'll be at that game.
Oh yeah, that's always good TV too, because you know how much we hate Dallas.
They'll actually be on TV, but I'm going to actually be at the game. With
Oh, show off.
That's yeah.
Thanks for the invite.
I mean, you're very close to you're pretty close to relatively to the home site. So whenever they have like some of their big home games, this upcoming for next year's season anyway, don't have any like dates or times and things of that nature. But hey, we at least know who the away and the home teams are.
Yeah, and hopefully, we can, because the going back to what you were talking about, how we were struggling towards like the end of the season with like some of these teams. It kind
Hmm.
of like we were kind of spoiled with that six when we got up to 6-3 because we were just kind of like we're putting like 35, 35 plus points up a week kind of thing. And then once that halfway
Or
point hit,
were we really spoiled? Let's be honest here. We weren't really spoiled. Being spoiled as a Patriots fan, that's being spoiled.
yeah. Or
So when
I guess the correct term is that we had high expectations after we saw because we started off the season with low expectations.
and then it just got off to a hot start, and
We're
then
like, oh
more
shit, we can do it.
wins.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that did work out. So yeah, continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so with regards to that, like, hopefully we can string together a full season because I saw I saw the schedule like you were mentioning. They haven't put out the order or anything, but
Mhm.
aside from our divisional games, we got some tough matchups next season. So we're gonna need to bring
Yeah.
our A to game because I think looking back on the season, losing to teams like the Raiders and Carolina,
Who
Atlanta,
do you know
New
who some of those
Orleans.
teams are, by the way, for the next season? I don't know if you
Let me
have it
pull it
right
up.
there.
Yeah,
I
let
do
me.
know I did see one. So obviously besides the Dallas Cowboys, I am gonna be there for that one. We're gonna face the Detroit Lions again. That's another one
Yeah, I
that I
have it
saw.
right here. So it
Actually,
looks like the home
mhm.
matchups are going to be against the Cardinals, Rams, and Niners, of course. Then we're going to have one against the Eagles, Browns, Steelers, Commanders, and Panthers at home.
Mm,
And
that's gonna be interesting.
away we're going to have the Cardinals, of course, Ravens, Cowboys, Rams, of course. We're going to be away to the Giants, Niners, of course, and Bengals, Lions, and Titans. So we got some tough games. Bengals and Lions and Titans. Like, who knows what kind of Titans team is going to be out there next
The
year?
ones that stood out to me was like the Bengals, the Lions, and I thought I had this thing saved on
Ravens.
my Ravens. Yeah, because Lamar should be healthy by that point, unless waiting
That's
to see
another.
on that.
Yeah,
That's another thing. But
but there's
you
also
know,
tough matchups in there. Like Commanders are going to have like a fully healthy Chase Young again.
that's true.
They're going to be a force to reckon with. Hopefully, they kind of get right at quarterback because that organization and that coach are not on the same page, and that I think that's what's been hurting them from taking that next step. But who
That's
knows where we're going to
true.
with Browns too? I mean,
Yeah,
we saw a middling
He's been out the whole season, and he just came in, so it wasn't that good. But there has to, like, you just take what Deshaun Watson did with the Browns this season as like the bottom. That's your
Yeah,
floor. So
that's
what?
actually a good way of looking at it. Yeah,
Yeah. So what are you going to see after? That's the thing for them because they have him on a fully guaranteed contract and stuff. So they
yeah,
got no choice in this matter unless
and
they're
if
going to cut him and have all that dead money like some
yeah, I
other
don't think they
teams.
will. They gave up 3 first round picks for him, so I don't think they will.
The Eagles is going to be a tough game for sure,
That is, of
though.
course, going to be a tough game. Eagles, if because Eagles are going to continue to build with
They
what
have a
capital that they.
top 10 pick on top of what they're doing right now as the first seed in the, NFC right now. So
Yeah,
that's crazy all around. So a lot of actually developing teams we're facing. So like I don't know if you want to say the Steelers, they're just winning, always winning hard, I guess.
mm.
Another winning season for Mike Tomlin, but the Panthers as well. Like we'll see a new different Panthers. They're gonna either have a new quarterback or something
They're gonna have a
over
new
there.
coach because I mean Todd Wilkes hasn't been. He was the interim, and we don't know if they're going to keep him. So I mean, I saw that they requested to interview Sean Payton as well, which pretty much every team besides the Colts have requested to interview Sean Payton. So it's kind of one of those things where, um,
Steve
oh
Wilkes for
sorry,
the
Steve
Panthers.
Wilkes. I think I
Hmm.
got Steve Wilkes and Todd Bowles, and I just fusioned them together.
Fused. But yeah, so we're gonna have like some of those developing. Like it's gonna be a really good game with the Lions because that's like we were both 9-8. One you
Yeah.
could always argue and debate like who should have went to the playoffs because some people were saying the Lions would have been a more exciting team to watch because of what they were doing to end off their season. Which
They were coming in hot, like
I
they
will
were. They
I will give y'all that. I will give all the critics and stuff out there that us Seahawks we just happened to beat them earlier in the season.
Yeah, and that's all it came down to.
Yep. So
But going back to the Niners game,
no, don't take me
well,
back.
taking you back. Well, we gotta talk about it at least because we want to get to the good stuff, which is what
Oh
we
yeah.
look forward to come the off season. But with regards to offense, the only things I wanted to touch on though is that it seemed like that we had that problem continuing where we were kind of in that three and out rut that we were in, like towards the end of the season. We had some good drives here and there, and DK had a monster of a game. He had like 150 or no 136 yards on 10 catches and 2 TDs. One of them came in garbage time, but still a TD. But I think going back to like that game being close, it was close all the way through the third quarter, pretty much. But I think the
Yeah.
game kind of ended once Gino had that
Hmm.
late third quarter fumble in the red zone,
Did
and
he
our
have
red zone
two?
curse.
He had two fumbles, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think that one in the third quarter was just kind of like it just took a pin and just popped the bubble, right?
There
Because
were.
we were,
Mhm.
staying toe to toe with the Niners is a good way of kind of sneaking out with a win, not letting the game get out of hand. And once that
Yeah,
fumble happened in the red zone, because we've talked about it time and time
frustration.
again.
You can see the frustration in the offense too in the
Yeah,
late half, in the second half as well. And defense can only do what they could do.
yeah, and
So
I mean, yeah, that's pretty much. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So the I imagine the defense was getting pretty frustrated as well. Having to spend so much time on the field, and that's what usually ends up happening in the fourth quarter. Is if they end up spending so much time on the field, that's when you can see that they're running on fumes.
do you think for the offense that I guess through like the evolution of the offense throughout this whole season, right? We were very hot in the first half. But then the second half, things fell apart for us. Kind of how like this playoff game did for us as well, right? Do you think we went too simple on the offense towards the tail end of the year, or those last some games, or what do you think of the offense? I guess overall.
That's a good question because I was hoping it was a curse that we would end, which is we always like under like Russ's later years with the team, we always started off kind of red hot, for the first half of the season. And then after the first half, we kind of taper off, and it might come down to, maybe there's enough game tape where the offense becomes predictable. They can't run the same type of sets that they want. But it seemed like from our perspective, we just had a change in we had a change in our game plan that kind of took us away from what was giving us a lot of success, which was, we can probably attribute that to the injury to Rashad Penny and having losing that depth so that we had to change the way we ran the ball. And
Jamal
we
Adams leaving on the defense because I mean I know you and
yeah,
I both know they had schemes like
they had Jamal Adams like right in the middle of every play in that game. We know that
yeah.
for a fact. I
Hmm.
mean, Ryan Neal came in and he did admirable. I mean, I think he was our highest rated player according to PFF. So, odds
He
are he's
wants to
going to get
come
a lot
back.
of.
He wants to come back, but if there's a good offer out there, it's just one of those things.
I
So,
wouldn't hold it against him, but I would
but
love for him
I
to
think
continue on
we're
that
going to
team.
sign him back probably for a little bit higher, only because knowing what happened with Jamal Adams, unless we're about to go get a strong safety out in free agency or the draft, which I highly doubt.
Yeah.
But
I,
regardless,
given like what Pete has been saying, like, in his tell all, which is, he wants a lot of emphasis on that defensive line. And, Pete Carroll and John Schneider, they do have that, they have that good, they're like, two peas in a pod in that sense. They're both on the same page. So Pete has a lot of trust in John Schneider when it comes to making these kind of deals and stuff like that. Pete will go out and say that these are the kind of players that are going to fit into our system, but he won't overstep into John Schneider's role in the organization. So as long as those two are on the same page, continue to be on the same page, and the fact that they're coming out now and saying that these are the things that we're concerned about, it's grounds to be confident as a fan moving forward, because your concerns they're gonna try to you know fix the things that we've been concerned about all season.
so like I guess since we've been kind of talking about the defense now, because there's not much else to speak on the offense. Um, Again, defense was there in the first half. They were keeping us in there because our offense was actually, going down the field, and of course got away from us in the second half because as everything starts to fall down, it's going to affect the defense eventually because you're going to get gassed. So that just brings me to my last few points of we are hurting at the D line and the linebacker position. We had Tanner Muse and Cody Barton up in there. A strong way to end the season for those two, especially what happened with Brooks and stuff like that. But we're definitely going to be on the lookout for a linebacker. Not too sure of like, for instance, like of how we want to do things, right? Because a lot of people have been saying we have Nwosu at edge, so technically that would be Nwosu and Darrell Taylor. Boom, that's your two edges. And I was like, okay, I can see that, but Nwosu is it's like they keep putting him out in packages rather than like he's out there. I'm not saying you're out there for a majority of the game, but I just haven't seen that besides when he flashed on the, when he flashes and stuff like that with the speed. So we can look for D line and stuff like that, but Al Woods, I think we're gonna probably try to help him retire in Seattle because I don't think he wants to leave, especially at his age and stuff. But yeah, the last my last point is just that for again, so for everyone knows, with the Seahawks, we switched from a 4-3 cover three defense that Pete Carroll has been literally running since 1970. Kid you not. That's an actual thing, and finally switched to something new, the 3-4 with Clint Hurt, who he moved up from the D line. I believe he was a D
He
line
would see
coach
line, yeah.
previously. Okay, and yeah, moved up from D line to defensive coordinator, have to helm this new defense. Put on him. You can kind of tell that the defensive scheme throughout the season has been inconsistent. Obviously, failing outright, if not inconsistent, and then of course, like it has its strong moments, but inconsistency is will not help us. And like the two things I personally believe that kind of builds up a defense is the talent and the scheme. And the one thing we can do this offseason is go get that talent. The scheme part, it's going to have to be like an evolution kind of thing. But at the same time, I think the scheme's that's going to take more time than it is to go and get talent. And
Do you think the
Mhm.
scheme inconsistency in the scheme was a result of having um, you know, square pegs for circle holes type of thing? Where we didn't have the right players to satisfy the scheme. That's why our scheme was inconsistent, or
I
was
won't
it a
say that's
coaching
like that.
decision?
I won't say that's the end all be all. Like that's the reason why our defense sucked. No, we Pete Carroll, even in like you were saying with the ending season like press conference, he definitely said we were lacking talent, especially on that D line. He even made mention that like Puna Ford has been a three tech all season long. I think we need to put him back at nose tackle. We've been tiring him out over there, even though he played a little bit less. But I kind of see where Pete's coming from. Basically, he's saying change up that defensive scheme along the line. If obviously besides the front seven, really just look at that front seven and take a peek there. I think the bigger thing is just that we just didn't have the talent, and with the scheme being inconsistent, like I said before, that means that some of that new stuff for that 3-4 defense might actually be very complicated and can get in the way of a player being great. Because if you remember, like from the Legion of Boom days, that defense was simple as it can get for the 4-3. We just had great talent, and the scheme was so simple and standard Not saying it was like, predictable and you knew how to just like beat the Seahawks every week during that era. It was just so simple that it never got in the way of them doing the play. Like if I told you just go straight, that's it. You don't have to worry about zigzagging or nothing. Just go straight.
I'd add on to that that there was a lot of trust between the people that were on the field to do the jobs that they were expected to do, because
Hmm.
even you can scheme up all you want, but when push comes to shove, maybe a play is extended longer than it should be, kind of like and kind of like what you have with like an elusive quarterback type of thing, right?
Hmm.
Because when you at least at the secondary level, you're only expected to cover a receiver for like maybe 3 or 4 seconds, because you would hope that the defensive line or your pass rush gets home at that point. But the thing with the Legion of Boom era is, even that's not going to happen 100% of the time. You're never going to have pressure within 3 seconds every snap.
Hmm.
But if players in the secondary bit, on a receiver doing his route, he could trust that there was someone behind him to cover his area of the field, and without ever having to, necessarily like communicate and that kind of thing. And I think
Hmm.
that's what they need to build up to is, the personnel on the field needs to get trust in the scheme and trust in each other. And that's something that you can't force. It comes over time.
Very true. That camaraderie and stuff like that, and just like the team building and stuff, you got to do that. I feel like that's just like a almost an unspoken rule at this point. Because if your team can't gel together, we're not going to play together. Period. Right.
Yeah.
So at the very least, we're not losing the locker room. We don't have any locker room issues from what I can see. I don't see any issues like against any players or anything like that. Besides the whole Russell Wilson debacle that happened post trade, but besides all of that, like I feel like this team is willing to fight for one another. It's just a matter of like let's get the let's hopefully get that defense back up because that's really what hurt us in that last half of the season. More so than the offense, but like offense, whatever we were doing in that first half of the season, literally
Yeah.
like all those new formations and stuff like that. Let's get some more of that. Like bring some more college. Like Shane Waldron, open up your playbook some more, man. If you can, because that's going to help out in the long run, especially when eventually we're going to bring in like a younger quarterback down the line at some point. So whenever that happens, if he's there, we'll be ready for that. But as long as we can evolve as a team, that's all that matters to me.
Yeah, and as fans, we just, all we can do is hope based off of the information that's given to us, and we have a lot of reason to hope. And I think that's the important thing for us moving forward. Um, but yeah, we pretty much touched on all the things regarding defense. Only thing I had was, like you said, we played pretty solid up until the fourth quarter, but that's when we started showing we were gassed. That's when Debo had his 74-yard touchdown. It
Hmm.
kind of just was just like a the
It was
nail in the coffin.
tough. That was
Yeah.
a tough touchdown right there. Like after that touchdown, how about I was like, ooh, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, and the other thing, I think Pete Carroll even said it too, which is a funny analogy. I don't understand it because I think it's way before my time. Was that we had trouble bringing down Brock Purdy, and he said that he was so elusive he looked like Tankerton. I'm like, dang, that's an old reference. I gotta
Old
Google
reference.
this.
I don't get it. Like I wasn't there. I
you
have to
could tell
now.
you could tell you've been playing football or in football for a long time.
Right. That man's been in it for a hot minute, right? So, yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you got?
No, let's look at some, how do we think about the team overall? You want to start?
I mean, overall, just I knew we weren't like a team ready for a deep playoff run. I'm glad. I'm just proud of the team overall for making it to the playoffs. Excited for the like basically excited for the offseason, both free agency and draft, because I'll talk about that in a little bit, and I guess in our accolades section for what for what it's worth in the accolades on the offseason part. But Pete did say that all the coaching staff is coming back. Although Sean Desai was, he was interviewing for some defensive coordinating positions as he should, because
Did he
I know
interview for anyone besides the Browns? I haven't heard
I
much.
saw him in the running for the Browns, but definitely it might have been some other ones, but he was higher up for the Browns than the other
The other
ones he
ones,
was
yeah.
in. Yeah, so the ones that definitely kept on popping up from Twitter and stuff was just the Browns over and over again, but that's okay because like he was facing up against like Jim Schwartz and stuff like that, who was a past defensive coordinator from when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl back in 2017. So it's okay, nothing wrong with that. Sean Desai is still a good coach in his own right. He'll have his moment, whatever that moment is. I hope if Pete Carroll were to eventually, I don't know when Pete Carroll's going to retire. He's
That
back,
man is timeless. He feeds off
timeless.
the blood of the youth or something.
Right. I'm still going off of that little like speculation of like maybe Sean Desai is like gonna be up for the head coaching role. But again, if the opportunity presents itself, you go out there and get it, right? So kind of it hurts, yet it's like it's the good bittersweet. Like it's sweet bitter because like, oh, he didn't get his defensive, like he didn't get his chance, but at the same time we have him back again for like the secondary and all that type of stuff this upcoming season. So
And he's often credited for being the reason why our secondary kind of had like their little mini revolution this kind of season compared to last season. I mean, you could obviously factor in Tariq Woolen's presence on the left at the left cornerback or the right cornerback position,
mhm.
but I think that with regards to like that I think that's why maybe Pete Carroll wants to like groom him to be his replacement because Pete Carroll's always been kind of the guru for secondary play as seen around the NFL.
And
But
Seahawks are they're all about being in house. Like it's like a family kind of thing. So it's in house. That's why even Sean Desai, who played for them previously, is just back in there and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens. I hope something shakes up for him.
yeah,
Down the line. So for sure,
yeah. No, I mean, personally, like I hope he's being groomed to be like the next head coach because that would be
that would be
pretty
so
dope.
awesome. And I'm here for it. Sean Desai for the new Seahawks head coach. There,
Because
you heard it here.
it's
You
it's
heard it
kind
here
of
first, folks.
it's kind of rare that you have a person in your organization, at least at the coaching level, that's kind of held in high regards amongst multiple organizations because
Hmm.
he's been around a couple organizations in the league. I know Bears are the first one that come to mind. I can't remember other organizations, but everywhere he's gone, people have said good things. It's kind of like one of those things where everyone knows that Sean Desai is going to be a head coach one day, and it's just a matter of when.
Yeah, matter of when. Yeah. You have anything else overall, I guess, for the team, or you want to
Yeah,
just head
like
on into the accolades?
yeah, I got a few. So I mean, like with regards to like we said, we came into this season so with low expectations, not knowing what we had at quarterback, what kind of defense that we were going to play, how our rookies were going to do because we had a lot of them. And, we watched every Seahawks game this week. We knew what to expect coming into into this playoff matchup. So it's not like we were let down as fans. But like I said, we have a lot of hope going into next season. Like I was reading one of the transcripts from the end of season press conference from Pete, and like we were saying, he addressed that the front lines are exactly what needs to be addressed, and every fan that watches the Seahawks week in and week out, we know that's where we struggle the most is that defensive line. And his exact words were he was calling out for guys that can do the stuff, run or pass to cause the problem. That was his quote.
Yeah,
And I think that's and he called out Aaron Donald, which is kind of like it's kind of a moot point because everybody knows how much of a monster Aaron Donald is. You could just say, "Yeah, I want Aaron Donald on my defense." Well, every defense will be good, but with regards to what he's trying to say is that he's looking for people that he can put out there, run or pass that'll get to the guy, that get to the quarterback, get to the running back, disrupt the play, and allow the entire defense to work well as a unit. He called out guys like Jordan Brooks, Tariq Woolen, Quandre Diggs as those guys that can do that. But, none of those people have their hands down on the defensive line. And so that's where
that sounds like a top pick kind of thing. Some picks should be going to that
some picks
defensive
should be.
front seven, right?
Yeah. And so, and Pete in that same press conference, Pete said, we're just getting started. We have no reason to doubt him. We've seen how much, how we've fielded like 5 or 6 rookies and on 22 out of 22 players on defense and offense, and we kind of excelled in a lot of areas with regards to that. So keeping the stability in the coaches room, like you were saying, all of our
Hmm.
coaches are coming back, having that talent there, having a lot of draft capital. We have nothing but a bright future in front of us if we continue to build. So we have all the hope in the world.
Prayers out for that for that off season because this off season is going to be very important for the Seahawks. So depending on what we do, free agency versus draft and stuff like that. So or both, obviously both too. So yeah,
Yeah, and that's all I had for overall. So getting the accolades because I know you love your fun facts and accolades.
I only got one actual accolade, which was we made it to the playoffs. So a lot of people,
Slow clap,
again,
please.
yep, playoffs. That's the Seahawks. We did it, y'all.
Yeah.
um, but which is really good. Again, proud of the team. Love it all the time. Some other ones like for the offseason coming up, we got 4 picks in the top 52 for the draft, which is those are really some really good picks right there. Thank you, Broncos. But
Let's
not
ride.
but screw you, Broncos, for having all of a sudden saying I want to be a football team in that last week. That screwed us over.
That we
Uh,
went from 3 to 5 in that, right? Like,
yep,
that's
because
kinda wild. Oh, and our other pick has now established at least, so at
20.
least we know, yeah, 20.
Yeah. So now we have pick 5 and 20, which is still high picks overall. It's just a matter of what we do with them. I've seen plenty of mock drafts with your trades and stuff like that. I think one in particular was at 5. We trade down to the number 9 with the Panthers, and the Panthers go get a QB, but we get like a flurry of picks, and then I guess we pick an edge or whoever's left at edge and D tackle at that point. But regardless, that's something interesting to think about. Oh,
Actually, one
yeah,
while we're talking about the draft,
yeah,
one
yeah.
thing I noticed was that, um, there is a kind of there's kind of a interesting story going around with regards to CJ Stroud not declared for the draft. And he is regarded as one of the top two with Bryce Young and
Mm-hmm.
quarterbacks. That'll definitely shake things up come the off or come the draft
Oh, that
if
is
he doesn't actually declare.
true. But I thought he was going to declare. My only thing is this: for a college player, and I believe it's his junior season, correct? Whether it's redshirt or not, it's his junior season, correct?
I think so. I think it's his junior season.
Yeah. So as a junior, whether you're a redshirt junior or you're actual junior, and you actually have teams talking about getting you in the first round. I'm not talking top 5. Well, obviously you can say if it's top 5 or top 10, even more so. But if you have a team saying we're trying to get you in the first round, you better go to that draft and get your money because you
Yeah,
do
and
not
so
know what's going to happen in the college season next year. And we've seen plenty of examples where a lot of players that were like high, they were going to be high up, got injured, and they fell so low.
and the reason why I think he's held off for so long is because with NIL money coming in college, and it just continuing to grow as it kind of settles down into as a fact of being a college football player. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what he's kind of banking on
I
is
mean,
more NIL coming in for him next year, and then
true. That's true. But at the same time, you have more money up front
it doesn't
with the
it
NFL though.
yeah, and I think that's exactly, I think that's the point that a lot of people are missing is that if you're in that top 3, you got a lot of money coming your way for
Yeah, you got because I can see Houston going Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, and if
yeah.
not, let's just say Houston takes Bryce Young, like a lot of people are saying they will. Okay, you still got the Colts, you still got the Raiders, like that's still top 10, and you're gonna get like a lot of money for it's in the millions for your sign on bonus besides your salary, but your
Yeah.
sign on bonus is like in the millions in the top 10. So I don't know what else to tell you. I wouldn't just turn that down and be like, I'm coming back for Ohio. I'm coming back Ohio State.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
It's very short-sighted if you continue to do that. I mean,
I wouldn't say
yeah.
short side. I mean, there are some people that, I'm not going to go against that for them. They just want to take another year and say, hey, I love what we got here. We almost were that close to the natty. I want to try to make another run.
Oh yeah, if it comes down to that, then no argument whatsoever if you're out there trying to
The
trying
only
to
thing
win it
is
all.
you're risking your body out there because you could have been taken in the top
Are
5 or
you
top
really
10.
risking your body if you're a quarterback for Ohio State? I think that's the other
He
point
got
is
hit. He got hit.
he didn't get hit like
He
some
didn't get
other
hit
guys.
like, yeah, we ain't talking like what happens in the NFL, but he's gotten hit and stuff. But that's the thing, you don't know what's going to happen. Some
Yeah,
people expect
it's a
like
freak
another
thinking.
good season to go up, but then boom, you got a leg injury or something. At that point, which happened to some quarterbacks in the past, I wish I had those examples on me right now, but the short of it is it's not going to help you. You're then going to fall out of like maybe the first half, if not
Yeah.
the whole first round, and then get picked up, be behind someone for a year or two to get your body right and stuff. But hey,
And a
they're
lot of
wrong.
players that are coming into the draft that are at least highly touted take insurance out against their own bodies. Like,
Yeah,
if they
you got to.
and so like could you imagine if that was just a thing that people did? Like, I need to insure my hands. If they get broken, I can't
Yeah.
coach.
Yeah, 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 for sure. Like if what makes your money, especially as let's say an offensive lineman, it's really your whole body, if not your hands. If you wanted to put insurance on those parts of your body, if something were to happen, so be it. Because when you get injured and it's like a career-ending injury, not much money is actually coming your way, as we've seen even this season. Like the Bills didn't have to pay Demar what they did for him missing that game and stuff like that, but they just said no, we're gonna just fulfill our like no, come on now, no one expected him your heart to stop on the field. Let's just give you your money. You were playing your heart. You're playing your heart out on the field, man, man. Oh man, the
A little
puns.
poor choice of words there.
Poor choice of words right there, but you're playing like all out on the field and stuff like that. So they gave him that, but in the contract they did not, like it said you're not obligated to pay him, depending on what
Yeah.
your contract says in terms of injury. So
I mean, there's a human factor that goes into it, which you would hope that every organization tries to honor.
that's why you got to be smart in who your agent is and get all that stuff. That's why like all those little for contracts when you enter as a rookie. That's why sometimes that contract doesn't get signed immediately. They look at that contract. They say, hey, either they themselves do or they say, hey, I got an agent for this. Can't you know? This is why I pay you. Can you go and take a look at that contract and see if there's anything weird in there saying like, oh, they could just throw me away if I say a bad word on this day. I kid you not, because they had the one weird clause for Kyler Murray, like, hey, you got to do like 4 hours of mandatory study, and like it's like, what is that implying, that I don't study?
Yeah, I mean that was an interesting story too because I feel like, I mean, we talked to Oliver about the cards all the time, and it was one of those things that kind of seemed like it was blown out of proportion,
Of course, people are
and
gonna meme it. They're gonna meme it regardless because
yeah,
he's
is
out there on social media playing like Call of Duty and stuff like that. So people are just like, "Ooh, he plays too much Call of Duty," and then that just rolled into what the meme world took it to.
yeah, and it's like part of the fact of as part of the life of being a public figure, right? When you put everything out there and the results don't necessarily show that you're performing at what you should be performing at. People are gonna meme you and all that stuff.
People just meme you just for the sake of being meme, man. Like that's the thing about the internet. It's just like it's a wild west. You don't know what's gonna pop up or happen. You don't know what meme's gonna be the meme.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, do you want to be a meme? I want to be a meme, but then I'm like, they might make me a really mean
I
one.
choose not. This is me for social media. There's a lot of people that be showing up as the main character when they get called out or something like that on Twitter and all that type of stuff. I'd rather be the side character in this case. Y'all got it.
Yeah,
Y'all can have that.
y'all fight it. Yeah, like you remember when we first started and I was going ham on the Twitter because the first game of the season we were playing
You
the
was
Broncos.
tight. You was tight. You was very tight about like Russell Wilson for some odd, like you were just like you were in it, and there's nothing wrong with that. You didn't take it too far. You were just like, now look what I like that one you did, the one tweet where it's just like, now look where do you think this ball's gonna go in this instance? That was the
Yeah,
big one right there.
yeah, and that's it's. What I was gonna say was that it's kind of like empowering not having your face on your socials because then you're just like, all right, I can say things without worrying about it being attached to my face.
But no,
But
that was actually
obviously,
that was a valid tweet though, because like
yeah,
let's be honest, there was times when like Russell Wilson would have like some open stuff, but he chose not to throw it in the center and stuff like that. And it's like, come
yeah,
on, man.
yeah.
Like,
It was a it's been fun. I'll just say that.
very fun, if you will. But yeah,
But any other act?
that's all I have. That's all I have. On my end for the accolades. I mean, I know we got like the rookie of the year stuff coming up. Like so there's a lot of this is funny because we were just definitely like looking at this before recording of like how many NFL rookie of the year awards are there? And currently there is the what was it, the Pepsi Zero no, yeah, Pepsi Zero NFL Rookie of the Year award, where you can just basically go online and vote for your Rookie of the Year in that sense. And we have two players from the Seahawks on there. Uh, our man K9, it's a running back, y'all. We have a running back with 1,000 yards. Kenneth Walker, the Kenneth Walker himself, and then of course Tariq Woolen. And go ahead and just choose one of them. You can't
Yeah,
go wrong.
this is our award in the sense of fans. But yeah, we were looking this up and we were like the traditional award that we've always seen is offensive and defensive rookie of the year, and I think
Right.
the AP one was the one that we kind of settled
Yeah.
on being like the main one, right?
Associated Press, rookie of the or offensive rookie, defensive rookie, and there's like two or three other rookie of the year awards, and I was just like, I give up.
Yeah, K9. So with regards to the AP one, I think Vegas has K9 being the leader at offensive rookie of the year with Garrett Wilson behind him, which is
Really, that's awesome.
that'd be dope if he won it. And
I'm
I
with
think
it
and on defensive side, I think they had Tariq at the second odds-on favorite to win it behind
behind
Sauce
you.
Gardner.
Yeah, because like the thing with that one is like I'm not talking down on Sauce. He because him and Tariq Woolen, when they were both on the field, they were both like a like Tariq was actually telling him like, "We're the future, man. It's us. We're the future now coming in. We got to prove like for people coming behind us and stuff like that." And on on some real shit, right? This one, like they are both solid at corner. Like if I had both of them at corner one, like, at left and right
Could you
side,
imagine the Jets had the opportunity to draft both because Tariq went in the 5th, like, any team coulda took it.
it's one of those crapshoot things where like you got to just see what you see, what do you think you need. And I know with Pete Carroll and how we draft corners, he likes the tall, lengthy corners. That the who was it? I forgot who's like our typical archetype that we go to from the Legion of Boom. No, it's
Sherm.
Sherman.
Yeah,
Yeah. Sherm himself, like if we can get another Sherm, hey, we're gonna be good, right? So like the tall, long armed, 4'3" if possible, like basically the athletic corner that's
yeah.
tall and lanky and that can get to where they need to get to, and of
Basically
course
all
just
the
be able
things that Pete can't teach you.
basically like have all of those just have all those athletic ability and stuff like that, which it depends on what happened at the Senior Bowl, who they sing, because they tend to favor, like our front office tends to favor what happens at the Senior Bowl, and we draft those up higher compared to some other talents that might deserve the look, right? So we'll see
Mhm.
what happens in that case. But uh, Sauce, regardless, he's really good. Not a lot of like footballs were thrown his way. He only had like one touchdown this whole season, which is crazy, especially like with the Jets. Because who was their previous island on the Jets?
Darrelle Revis.
Bam, because everyone was basically saying Darrell Rivas 2.0, right? So
Mhm.
we'll see how that goes, and hopefully, and of course, Tariq Woolen is just like I don't know have a nickname for him yet, but I love the Shadow. That's the
Yeah.
one I picked up, either Shadow or the Shadow. But regardless, hopefully we can get like if we could take both Rookie of the Year, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I
That'd be
mean, that'd
cool.
be that'll just add fuel to the fire for us as fans because, like we say, we got hope. And the fact that one of the things that really stuck out from Pete's postseason conference
Hmm.
uh, was that he put Tariq Woolen in the same group as like Quandre Diggs and Jordan Brooks, which tells us that he's already firm in the organization. Like he has, like he's already up there with Quandre, who he struggled a little bit this season, but he's coming off that I think broken ankle or I
Hmm.
think it was torn Achilles. I can't remember. It was some
He
lower
was
leg
still
injury.
saying he wasn't fully himself this season, but he was still playing really well.
Yeah, and the fact that Tariq was up there as like in the same breath as veterans like that, like
Hmm.
that's we got nothing but blue skies ahead of us in that aspect.
That's why some people apparently see us like at number 20 drafting a corner. And I'm like, I mean, I get it because some people don't think Mike Jackson is the truth at the other side, but to each their own on that one. I don't think I just feel like we need to focus on that front seven at the very least, and then see what we can see at corner later in the draft. Especially those first two picks have to just be the D
Mhm.
line and the linebackers. That's just me. That's where I'm going with those two picks. If we pick a quarterback, well, just fire up the press, right? Because that's
Yeah,
going to be the talk of the town. But that kind of goes into like my extra bits for Seahawks right now, right? And one thing I did see pop up over the week was, should we got a question for you, man. Like, should we even sign Gino? Let's just say we allow him to go out because this is his moment to get that money. There's teams out there that need a quarterback, but what if we didn't sign him and just sign Drew Lock and like maybe say like what 20 million or so on the cap space for the free agency and just ramp up the defense even more. So, what do you think of that?
that's a good question, and I think it kind of comes down to the talent out there that's available. Like maybe start from there. If you're looking at free agency and you see a lot of players that you want to go after, and you don't have necessarily the cap room to go after them,
Mm-hmm.
then you start looking at all right, who do we cut? And the other names I've seen thrown around or cut or not give a contract to.
Mm-hmm.
And the other names I've seen around are like the guys we've gotten from the Broncos, like Noah Fant or Shelby Harris, because they're on larger contracts than other players on the
I can
team.
see Shelby Harris going. I ain't gonna lie to you, but I don't know where that's gonna go. But I know we're gonna keep Noah Fant because they love their tight ends, and of course
I
Will
love that
Disley,
package, dude.
right? And Will Disley right now, they're seeing if he needs to even have surgery right now. They're gonna wait a few months to see if it heals on its own with his little injuries. But
It's
I
a
would
weird one,
say
right? He has some issues with like nerve endings in his knees or something like that, in his knee or
yeah, a
something like
lot of
that.
those weird. Yeah, with him, it's definitely serious because he had several like leg injuries in his career
Mm.
on both legs. So keeping Noah Fant is a must because Noah Fant, we just didn't. We did if we wanted to, we could have been throwing the ball to Noah Fant like most of the season if we had to. He would have had like a good close to, if not at 1,000 yards and all that type of stuff. So just
Yeah.
saying.
And we've seen like what we've seen out of Colby Parkinson and know he's an absolute solid tight end as well. But they do like their three tight end packages and having depth in that area is important to the run game. So they might, need to look at it from that perspective. But for with regards to like Gino, I don't see him being one of the first ones cut, but I do see that as a possibility, given how he kind of struggled towards the end of the season. But given that we're at the end of the season, no one has to cover for anyone. Pete
Hmm.
came out and said that Gino's our guy. The organization, I think John Schneider has come out and said that Gino's our guy. Gino himself has come out and said, Seahawks had faith in me when no one else did. I'm Seahawks through and through. And if they can agree to a number that, works for everybody, then I don't see them cutting him because already when it comes to an organization, they already allocate a certain amount of their money to a quarterback in terms of like, all right, we can't even though we have $50 million of cap space, maybe that's why we're number 5 because we don't have a quarterback salary on the books.
Basically.
But they know that money is going to go somewhere anyways.
Thank you, Broncos.
Thank you,
That's
Broncos.
literally that's why we have that much cap space, because I think Russ would have took like 35 or if not 40 of it. So
Well, given his new deal, isn't it like 50?
oh yeah, we ain't talking about the Broncos doing over there, man. They can handle that. That's them
Yeah,
now.
that's their
That's
pro
their problem.
that's a them issue, not an us issue.
Exactly.
Yeah, but, yeah, to answer your question, I don't see Gino like, I see the situation working out for all parties and, continuing with Gino as that bridge quarterback and, continuing to let Drew Lock continuing with Drew Lock as the backup quarterback, that's a bit of an interesting question too, because
Mhm.
I can see them continuing. Obviously, they saw something in Drew Lock when they wanted him included in the trade deal, or else they could have included like maybe a
I
different player.
feel like you have to get that though when you're trading your franchise quarter. It's kind of like a here's our quarterback, just so you have something to work with. And of course, they knew they had Gino, but let's just be honest. What if Gino got injured? That's also
Yeah.
why we took him in that trade. And so, like if you're ever trading your franchise, at least get whoever their starter is to like compensate something. Obviously, it's not going to be your go-to guy, maybe depending,
Mm.
but everyone's different in that regard. So that's why I saw the Drew Lock being added into the deal. Maybe could have had another pick, but at the same time, I think we're good. Gino was healthy throughout the season. He got sacked here and there, but like the O line did what they did compared to with Russ and stuff. Although Russ
Yeah.
is running
I
around.
don't actually don't have the numbers. I was kind of curious. Well, it's not really a fair comparison because obviously different personnel on the offensive line, but I think there is a way of tracking stats with sacks that are on the quarterback, the
Yeah,
quarterback's fault. I just
I
haven't looked it up.
think I forgot the team that was number the last. I think it was either Colts or not the Giants. It was some team that was like 9-8. It might have even been the Lions too. Like they had like a high quarterback pressure on them or high quarterback sacks and stuff like that. Someone took the trophy. It wasn't us this year. Is
Yeah.
all I'm trying to say. So,
So I wonder if this is from Steve Palazzolo from PFF
mhm.
said that. Oh no, this is 2021, but it's not necessarily a fair comparison. But
It's there though. It's definitely there though.
yeah, it's not easy to look up. I think they still haven't come out with it yet. But
Yeah.
last season Russ had 6 of his sacks attributed to him, and I think he was sacked like 30 plus 40 plus times. So
Yeah, we weren't up there this year, which is really good. That's an improvement for me. Like we've made so many improvements elsewhere, while also like kind of like man, like the defense, even still, come on. But like defense, for all its faults this year, that still showed better flashes than when we were running 4-3,
yeah,
in my
and that
opinion.
I think that's it was a pill we were gonna have to swallow eventually with regards to our defense, to continue to evolve, and we just chose to line it up. Which there's no time better to line it up with than when you're transitioning from a franchise quarterback to whatever your new situation is on offense. So
Right. And
I
then
mean,
with that new situation now, right, that's also kind of going into like what should we address. Obviously the draft, you want to address everything, but like what should we address immediately with free agency, as that starts in March.
if there's
With
any if there
Yeah.
I value experience on the offensive line. It's things that
Mhm.
we've seen like organizations like the Steelers used for a lot of to be successful for a long period of time.
Mhm.
We saw a lot of money spent by the Bengals last season on the offensive line to bring in veteran players. I think if players are getting cut, because once the offseason is in full swing after the Super Bowl, a lot of players will be hitting the chopping board. And so if we can spend some money there in terms of free agency, I think
Mm,
that'll having that veteran center is extremely valuable in terms of making the younger players around him a little bit better. Because you've played center, you know how important it is
yeah.
to communicate, to have good communication skills, and to be able to read, defensive schemes, call it out, and make sure that your entire unit is on the same page.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna say right now that there's not gonna really be I'm looking at the free agency page on OT on
Over the
over the
cap.
cap. So there's definitely like one player that's had 100% of the snaps, and that was Connor McGovern from the Jets. Although I feel like they may or may not re-sign him. So after that, it's Austin Blythe, who we had at our center. We know we're not going back to because I don't know, unless we sign him to like a team friendly deal while also looking for a better option in the draft. There's not many options in terms of from what I can see in free agency. It's pretty much like everyone kind of like they're keeping their good offensive linemen to
Yeah,
themselves.
everybody knows how valuable they are, except for the
Mhm.
fans, because just because offensive linemen don't score touchdowns unless you're unless you're Matt Vrabel, because I think he had 6 career receptions for the Patriots, or it might have been something like ridiculous, like 12,
Yeah,
and he had
because
12 touchdowns or 6 touchdowns or something like that.
oh wow, yeah,
So until unless you're an offensive lineman like that, people don't know how good you are, but every organization does. But if that's
yeah.
why I said, if there are people that have big contracts that are on the chopping board, maybe we can
Yeah.
swoop in and
It's one of those where it's like it's not looking good in free agency for center. I'm not looking everywhere else, but there's a number. I get if anything, you can go and look for tackles, but we only need guards, so that's why I was also looking at like right guards, but there's not much either
there's
in that
also
regard.
there's also the option. I remember when Damian Lewis was a rookie, we played him at right guard. And when we signed Gabe Jackson, we moved him to left guard to accommodate having both Gabe Jackson and Damian Lewis on the field.
Mhm.
And when that happened, there was a significant drop off, at least from my eye, in terms of how he was playing on the left side. He hasn't necessarily. I wouldn't even say he's gotten back to the same level he was as a rookie at the right guard position. So
Mm.
there is the situation where we can move him back to right guard and find a talent at the left guard position. If it's out there
It's
as
just when
well.
you that's why they always just say offensive guard in the draft and stuff like that. So take your top pick, whoever you can get in the guard at guard, and obviously whoever I am, that's a guard. If I played right guard, you asked me to play left guard for money, I'm playing left guard, I guess. That's
Mhm.
just one of those things. Funny enough, yeah, I don't know if you remember the center Will Clapp from the Chargers. He's up for he's up for a contract. The only reason
Do we do it to them again? We
it's
we'll
funny.
take
The only reason why I mentioned Will Clapp is because I've seen his name in memes,
mm,
unfortunately. So like, but besides that, I don't know if that's the thing. I haven't watched Will Clapp personally to say like, oh yeah, that's a good center. Let's go get him, put him in. We're good. Ethan Potsick from the Browns is up. You
but
know,
he used to play for us.
I know. I feel
The
like something like a friend, some type of team friendly like center. You're gonna probably see like a team friendly center free agency acquire. I think we're gonna see maybe one for the guard as well because why spend draft capital on that when we're trying to like rebuild this defense, right? So we'll see what happens with that. But elsewhere, I think there's some other stuff. Like I think potentially we can go get like a couple of like inner defensive linemen Fletcher Cox, well, his type, he has a void contract, so we'll see how that one, and Javen Hargrave as well. But I think those are just two are voided. We'll see how those work out. Dalvin Tomlinson is like a top one. David Onyemata from the Saints is another, although 31. That's about it though. And of course Puna Ford, which I feel like we need to keep Puna Ford, but put him at nose tackle, and then figure out who our defensive ends should be in this case. Um,
yeah,
out, but not the
defensive
edge,
ends
but
or
loose
defensive
ends.
tackles, depending on how wide they play and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but
But yeah,
you know,
you've touched on it a lot too, which was the defensive line definitely needs work. Pete says the defensive line needs to work. It's just about what's available at free agency versus a draft that we
yeah.
can fill in.
I just hope we don't do the whole typical like, oh my, Clowney's also going to be up for a contract
Not
too. I
again.
see.
We're not doing this again.
But the short of it is, I just feel like I don't want to keep on. This is what we've been doing. This is what just we've been doing all these years on the Seahawks. We always just keep getting the vets, free agents for the D line. We never just say like, hey, let's go and just draft somebody, right? Well, Darrell Taylor, we drafted Bruce Irvin, but like Bruce Irvin was a long time ago, though.
Frank
You know,
Clark, and then once came time to pay him, we traded him.
okay, but that's because we still had Russ and we had to figure out where to get the money, right? So we just
Yeah,
trade him anyway. So regardless, we'll see what happens in the free agency. And then final little bit of news for the Seahawks is just that we signed about a chunk of players to the reserve future contracts. And for those that just do not know what a reserve or future contract is, that's basically a contract you offer a non-active player, so that are on your practice squad, and you want them back for the next year. That's kind of all it is. So we signed some players you may not have heard of, like offensive lineman Greg Elan, linebacker Chris Garrett, D tackle Jared Hewitt, which I think some people remember that when we were kind of acquiring a lot of D tackles when our depth was starting to become messed up. The center Joey Hunt, so keep an eye out on him, see if he might actually get pulled up to the active roster next year. Wide receiver Cade Johnson, tackle Jalen McKenzie, cornerback Chris Steele, running back Darwin Thompson, and last two are Tacoma native wide receiver Connor Weddington and ex Washington State University receiver Aesop Winston Jr. So we'll see what happens.
yeah, and they've been. I think a few of those names have been around even in this previous offseason, so
Mm-hmm.
in training camp and stuff. So hopefully, some of the, we've been pretty good at finding dogs and finding dogs out of the
Dogs.
undrafted room or training camp, or those guys that were pretty much written off. So hopefully, one of those guys can kind of pop up out of this upcoming offseason and just continue to add to the riches.
Yeah. So I mean, at the end of the day, we I think that's pretty much it. All I have to say on the Seahawks. Congratulations, to the Seahawks for making it to the playoffs. We have dogs. We're in it to win it, and that's all I got.
We're just getting started.
Yep. All
And
right.
all right, let's go around the league, buddy. We've already talked about a few of these points, but we can just go through them really quick
Mm-hmm.
and just reiterate a couple of things. So first story up, we had Browns hired Jim Schwartz over Sean Desai at defensive coordinator. We talked about this a little bit already, but run me through your thoughts
Yeah,
on it.
Jim Schwartz. For those that don't, I said it before. He was the defensive coordinator when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl in 2017. So the Browns would have got either or with Jim. I think I forgot who else was in the running because it was Sean Desai, Jim Schwartz, and then was someone else. I forget the name, but regardless, it would either one would have been a great option for the Browns in this case. But we'll see what happens with the Browns going forward because they just fell off the radar this season. So that's all I have.
A lot of people thought that their defense was probably underperforming, and I think that's why they went to make a change at the defensive coordinator
Yeah.
um, position. But Jim Schwartz is coming off. I think he was on the Titans staff, and I think he was fired as part of like that, you know, cleaning house of what that Mike Vrabel did for that
Yeah,
organization.
Mike Vrabel had no choice but to do that because after
You
all
got
of
you need a
these,
fresh start.
you
It's
have
one of those.
to. It's basically it's like after this fresh start, he can be on the hot seat next season. I can see him on the hot seat.
Yeah, and so depending on how you thought the Titans defense played, it's kind of 50-50. It's kind of hard to say, like, because a lot of those players on defense, besides, who's the safety's name, and I'm blanking on right now.
Oh,
Uh,
is it not Justin Simmons because that's for the Broncos? I
Broncos. That
forgot.
was the first name I thought of too,
Yeah, but
actually.
it's one of those.
Here, let me.
No, I got you. I got you.
Yeah, but they also had guys like Bud Dupree that were hurt, and
Mm-hmm.
they did have a Simmons on. I think not Isaiah Simmons. They had a Simmons on the D line as well, but I can't remember him.
Yeah, they
A
got.
lot of injuries in that on that side of the field. So take it for what you want. They still did
Mm-hmm.
okay on
Mm-hmm.
defense, but it's he does have the fact that he does have a Super Bowl ring, so you can't take that away from him.
Yeah, they have Kevin Byard, free
Yeah,
safety, and then
yeah, Byard. That's who I was thinking
Yeah,
of.
and then Amani Hooker at strong safety.
Okay. Yeah, and so yeah, Byard is the one I was thinking about, who's
Mm-hmm.
kind of always just one of those like really solid safeties. But
You can
other,
only do what you can with that defense. Honestly, let's be frank though, that offense killed that defense in a lot of those games too. When
yeah,
you
and
put Malik Willis in.
it's kind of the same situation with us, right? Like, the defense on for the Titans was on the field for long periods of time. They didn't have a healthy
Yeah.
Derrick Henry. Their quarterback position was also up in the air because Ryan Tannehill was hurt for extended periods of time throughout the season. So
Mm-hmm.
haven't had really stability. They really haven't had stability on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens with the Browns.
Yeah, and next bit up, we have Chargers fire their offensive coordinator and quarterback coach Joe Lombardi. Obviously, Chargers had one of the biggest collapses this weekend.
Yep.
What are your
Yep.
thoughts on the firing?
Um It's pretty much. I mean, like I think everyone like because a lot of people were calling for like Brand Staley's like job if they weren't going to win this, but you have to also take into what he's done over his years. Expect when he started in 2020, and of course this was like the year like they didn't make it last year because Brandon Staley had some of those. Because the thing about the head coaching position, it's not just maximizing the players you have on your whole team. It's also those in-game decision makings that you have to do. And Brandon and Staley himself, he had some very questionable decisions that, like for instance with the Raiders last year, like all they had to do was tie, they could both go to the playoffs, but he was just took a timeout and all this other stuff, messed it up, got themselves kicked out of the playoffs because of it.
Yeah.
Kind of similar this season with some like certain things, especially I think like in the later half as well. But again, they made it to the playoffs they were in and stuff, and a lot of the team has actually been backing him up. And my thing is, he's going to be one of those coaches, along with Mike Vrabel, that's on the hot seat after you kind of like clear out. I guess in this case, like scapegoating. In this case, I just feel like they had to do something though because the offensive side of things, it extends from the head coaching position, but then of course your first person that you can let go is offensive coordinator and
Yeah, I mean,
start fresh.
we saw Frank Reich do it for the Indianapolis Colts as well, but more like you said, more like most likely Brandon or Joe Lombardi was scapegoated in this situation. Like Joe Lombardi didn't tell Brandon, Brandon Staley to field his entire first team in Week 18.
Yeah, that's one of
The,
those decisions as a head coach. Is like, why?
yeah, why'd you do that? And then
You lost Mike Williams for the playoffs, even though like not saying Mike Williams would have been like the reason why the Chargers would have won, but still.
he's one of your best players on offense. You kind of it's just one of those things that like you want to have all your best players on the field come playoff time, right? And
Yeah,
it just adding to like what you were saying about what they did last year in week 17, um, and how all they needed to do was tie and they could have made it to the playoffs. And
the
then
Raiders were going for a tie, and they were just looking at the Chargers like, "What are you doing?"
yeah, what are you doing? And then Raiders were like, "Fuck this, we gonna win it."
Right. The other thing to note about the Chargers is that if you actually watch them this season, they don't have a wide receiver that can threaten a defense vertically. They always
Other than
throw.
Mike Williams.
Mike Williams isn't even really that right receiver. I mean, I know he had those deep catches, but he's not the receiver that will stretch a defense with speed and stuff like that. He's more of like I'm not saying a red zone threat. It's more of like if you have Keenan Allen as like your route runner and stuff like that because he's not as fast. He's like he's more of like I'm your route runner, but you need like that deep threat to like make a defense not put everyone in the box every single time because Austin Eckler his rushing season was not as good as you think. He had obviously the receptions and the yards and stuff like that, but if you actually, he only had like 2 games where he went over 100 yards, but every
Yeah,
other game was like,
he just stat pads with touchdowns. That's why people loved him in fantasy.
right? Oh yeah, I definitely did. Yeah, number one running back in fantasy. So it's the only thing is like they need that whoever's the offensive coordinator that comes in, they need to actually bring that offense. Maybe not like have Staley kind of like push whatever he wants to push for that offense because they need to stretch the ball down the field. Herbert is like you're basically like wasting Herbert's like rookie years before that big contract comes, which is next year, by the way, which is also like that's like the prove it year for Herbert, but like Herbert's already proved enough. It's
Mhm.
just that before that big contract comes, you got to do something with it, right? So
Yeah,
we'll see what's
and
gonna happen.
with this firing, hopefully a guy comes in that'll help protect Herbert because we don't want him to follow the Andrew Luck career path where he just
Ooh,
gets
yeah, yeah, yeah.
hit a lot and then his career ends short.
They've been protecting him pretty decently this season. Like, oh my gosh, it just reminds me of last season. Oh no, does it this season?
He was playing with broken ribs this season,
That
wasn't he?
was this season. It's been a long season,
It's been a
man.
long season.
He did have yeah, he had the broken ribs, but I don't think that was an issue of like, oh, we just don't protect our quarterback. That's a Chicago Bears issue right there. But it's just one of those like random injuries that can happen to anyone on the field, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
but anywho, we'll see what happens with the Chargers going forward. But yeah, anything else you had on them?
no, just the joke was that Brandon Staley didn't even make it back to the locker room after that game. But guys like Herbert, Bosa, Derwin James Jr., your leaders on defense, they all voiced their support for Brandon Staley. So hopefully, if you're a Chargers fan, it's gonna hurt. Obviously, he had a 27-point lead, but it's there's the same everybody's on the same page when it comes to um, what the team needs to do. So
And I
uh,
also
yeah,
I also wrote them down by the way as like more of a fixable mess. Like it's not like you have to do a full rebuild. It's like, get a few pieces here and there. and you can actually make some you can actually be a threat in like the playoffs and stuff like that. Especially you definitely need to kind of do an offensive mindset or offensive scheme change, like how we need to do a defensive scheme change in terms of like updating it. But for them, they need to change up that whole scheme. Whatever they got going, they got to start like putting the ball down the field and stuff because they were like trying to remember. I think Herbert in one stat he was like 28, if not 29, in terms of like the yards. Not I think either yards
It's yards
attempted.
per attempt because
Yeah,
they threw the ball so damn much, but they didn't really show
check
much
downs.
for
Those
it.
all check downs and all that type of stuff. If
Yeah,
not certain routes, like there's literally route trees where they had where it's not even like no streaks, none of
yeah,
that, like nothing good. Like they don't really have a speed wide receiver. So
yeah.
I feel like they need to go and find someone that can be almost anybody they can find in free agency. So we'll see.
Yeah. Next up, we had one of the hot head coaching candidate names that is being thrown around this year, Jim Harbaugh. He's returning to Michigan next year. That's one name out of the hat, for a lot of these a lot of these openings. Current openings right now are Cards, Colts, Broncos, Panthers, and I'm forgetting one,
Said
but
Houston already.
Houston, yeah, Houston as well. That was the one I
Yeah,
was missing.
that was like the main one, my man.
Yeah, that was the
That's all
main
good.
one. And so there were a lot of his name's taken out of the race for all those
Yeah,
head coaching opportunities. What do you think about that?
I mean, that's his alma mater. He's comfortable in Michigan. I feel like Michigan is like they were pretty close. I don't know if they weren't in the final four, but they were close to being in the final four if I remember correctly, for the playoffs. So I feel like
No,
they were
they were
like,
in the Final Four.
oh, okay, cool, cool,
I
cool.
think they lost to TCU.
Yes, yes, they did. And okay, now I'm remembering. Yeah, it's coming back to me. So they, what I'm saying, like they were in the final four, and like I know he loves Michigan a lot. I think there was even like that Amazon, what's the Amazon show where they actually like go and follow like the college football like head coach and like their whole
Oh,
season. It's like
uh, it's
it's not
not. It's
Hard
like
Knocks, obviously, but
it's
it's
like the
like
equivalent of Hard Knocks, but I'm trying to remember. It's like It's not Last Man U. It's something else. I can't remember. But
no,
yeah, I know
yeah,
what you're
Last
talking about.
Chance You was like another one which
Last
was
Chance
really
U.
good. But I forgot like that specific like Amazon show for that. But like they did one with him in Michigan. He was just like he was always in it from the off season all the way, to the postseason and stuff like that. I just think that like why move up and then have to worry about like if he has to move across states. You have to also remember it's not like he's not going to go to Detroit Lions or anything like that, right? He has to move
Yeah,
out of state for that. And then of course you have like it's very crazy as a head coach in the NFL. I don't even know how long or what kind of contract he would get, but it's one of those things where like if he's not successful within those first 2-3 seasons, they'll probably give him like a season like okay we can scratch that season, but next season, but they give him like 2 or 3 seasons and you're gone, and then it's like
yeah.
oh I'm not now. I have no job. He'll probably just go back to Michigan, maybe or something.
I
Who
mean,
knows?
head coaching in the NFL is not easy. That I mean, you could see Cliff just booked a one-way ticket to Thailand. So, but I think what it comes down to is college football coaches have it way too good in terms of like how they're treated. Like we've talked about it, they're basically like if you're the head coach for your state's like best team, like if you're head coach for Alabama or Georgia or University of Washington or Oregon, you're basically like governor. That's like
Hey,
it's like an elected
Michigan State
position.
is a whole rivalry over there. I
That's
think
a yeah.
they got they have some fighting words for you with that one.
Yeah, that's fair. But in terms of like, the power that these guys have
hmm
in their respective regions, it's kind of wild when you think about it. And so, I'm kind of surprised. I mean, nothing says it more than like how many chances Jim Harbaugh has gotten at Michigan because he's been there for like, at least 10 years. And
They've just been very successful overall for his tenure over there. They've been in multiple postseason. I don't know. I don't think they got in a national championship with him there, have
no,
they?
I think this is the furthest they've ever been.
Right. So
And it took
you could
10 years
smell
for
it.
him to it took him 10 years to get him there. So, if you're Jim Harbaugh and you have that kind of that sense of security, then, it's probably better off that you're staying in the college landscape.
Yeah, I'm just checking their like records over the years. I just want to see what they got. But regardless, at the end of the day, I wouldn't. Oh yeah, they went 13-1 too. So it's just one of those things. No,
Yeah, and I think that one was TCU.
yeah, that one was DCU. Wow,
Yeah,
13-1, 12-2. Obviously, 2020 is kind of like that outlier
weird year.
year. Yeah, 2019 was like it wasn't his worst year. I think his worst year was back in 2017 when they went 8-5. But like they've been to bowl games almost every single season for
It,
Jim Harbaugh. Although they have not won their bowl games. They've been losing six straight. Actually, the
yeah,
last bowl game they won was the Citrus Bowl back in 2015.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is that he gets him there, but he can't get the job done, kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things, right? But it's like they just love him that much because, hey, I'm giving you these wins. We just something ain't working at the bowl game.
Yeah, and so you could tell, like, in like if you're an NFL organization, there's a lot of money on the line. 3 years and you're out. Jim Harbaugh's gotten 10, so
Or less, depending on
somewhere
what kind
less. Yeah,
of.
that is very fair, Nathaniel Hackett. Thanks,
Yeah.
Broncos.
Oh man. But
But
anywho,
yeah,
yeah.
but it's probably good for him. If it's good for Michigan, that's up for debate. A program like Michigan, they expect to be contending with the Georgias and the Alabamas and stuff like that. This was the first year in a long time that they actually got to that point, so maybe they're confident in the direction they're heading. But
Hmm.
only time will tell.
Hopefully they
Next,
got most of that talent there. So.
yeah, and I think that's a harder bit about college too. Is you just got so much turnover in terms of talent. That's why, like we
Hmm.
were saying last week, it's so impressive that Georgia went back to back.
That's true. Very true.
But next up, we had Cardinals hiring the Cardinals have hired ex-Pats scout Monty Ossenfort as a GM.
Yeah. They
What are your
got
thoughts
their
on that?
yeah, they got their GM first. I knew that they had to in that case. I thought trying to think here. I don't know if it was this team or another team that they like the Cardinals. I don't know if the Cardinals were in it for like Sean Payton for instance, and I don't know if this one was the one where it's like you just got a GM before you even brought me in because I would have liked to who I wanted and all that type of stuff. I think that was another team. Regardless, they got their GM. I just want to see who their head coach is going to be next, and they're now in that weird rebuild state where like you're paying your quarterback top dollar, but like that also means you don't have as much money as you would like for free. I think this is like their right now. This is like the most they'll ever get in their free agency unless they let other people go going forward. So it's just a matter of like who you can get, who you can draft. So
Yeah, and Austin Fort. Most people when execs are hired and stuff like that, they don't really know the name that's being thrown around unless it's
mhm.
like a former player. But Ossenfort, he came in, and one of the first things he said was, "Ego will not be tolerated." Which, if you're a Cardinals fan, where you're dealing with egos with Kyler and Cliff probably, and maybe at the GM position as well. He wants to ensure that the right culture is in place, and that sounds like he's trying to bring something of a bit of a patriot way to the
That's what I
Cards
was getting because
organization.
I wanted to know if like he said that and I'm like, was this like a little shot at was this a shot at Kyler Murray after what happened this past year? Because it's not like Kyler Murray was like an issue. Because I would have stood up if my contract said you have to have mandatory study hours. Like, what am I, a kid? Like getting
But I
paid
mean,
this?
like,
I'm
yeah,
talking about the other stuff, but like because Cliff and just weren't working out.
yeah.
That as a head coach to player.
That's what I was gonna say. Is I think that's where it came in, which was you had the ego of Cliff, you have an ego from Kyler, but you kind of. I'm not saying egos are necessarily a bad thing, but you kind of need that.
Yeah, we
Egos
don't know
can
what happened between Cliff and Kyler unless one of them come out and say like why they were arguing on the line and stuff. I don't because the ego, if it's a bad ego and what he's saying, he's kind of saying like give me the ball, me kind of thing, person or whatever. But Kyler didn't give me any, for me personally, ego issues. Although a lot of people are kind of putting that up as like his issues right now. So
and
I have my little issues with that, but from neither here nor there. So
yeah, and a lot of people are saying that this is a at least the rumor mill is sort of churning that saying that this is kind of like a precursor to the Cardinals signing Brian Flores. Um, you and I probably can agree that we'd be over the moon if Brian Flores got a head coaching job again. I really like what he did at Dolphins, or we both really like what he did at Dolphins and how he turned them into a pretty powerhouse defense in a
he's
very
getting
short span of time.
opportunities, and like people are asking him for an interview. I think,
I think he was part of
um,
the Browns conversation as well for defensive coordinator before they
yeah,
went with
because
Jim
right now
Schwartz.
he's a linebackers coach for the Steelers, but of course some people are like, let's get him as a defensive coordinator. But I can see him going back as a head coach. It's just, I
That's
don't
how
know.
he made the same transition. We went from Patriots to Miami, so it's
Yeah,
not unheard of. And so maybe that's one of the things if you're a Cardinals fan, if you're a fan of Brian Flores, to be optimistic about.
I'll be
If you're
optimistic on it, unless like you think he's going to be a problem due to like that lawsuit that's probably still running and stuff like that. But
and that maybe some folks are a little concerned with if Brian Flores was to go to be head coach of Cardinals, how his treatment of Tua. was, and if that'll translate to Kyler now, because we saw under Mike McDaniel, Tua kind of had a little bit of like a revolution as well, but
Hmm.
in between his concussions.
Yeah, well, we also have to see who are the Cardinals going to let go as well, because there's rumors of DeAndre Hopkins being on like the trade block and stuff like that. Whether or not it comes to fruition or not is up in the air, but they might try to actually like move to get some more picks or money and stuff like that. I mean, they have a decent pick, but even still, they might try to move him on and stuff like that to go and get someone else. But DeAndre Hopkins already proven himself to be a good receiver. If you can retain him, cool. But we'll see what happens with that as well.
Yeah, I think that yeah, that'll be interesting. I think DeAndre, I sent you and Oliver this in our Discord, but I was watching the local sports news on in Phoenix while I was there, and a poll came up where it said which DeAndre is leaving first, DeAndre Hopkins or DeAndre Ayton, and I thought, well, I was like, what? Damn, what a poll!
The best poll ever, right?
Yeah, and so I think DeAndre Hopkins, I think he's obviously being shopped around right now. So I think it's kind of a foregone conclusion that the Cards are going to try to get some sort of draft capital, or maybe like talent capital out
Yeah,
of DeAndre Hopkins, um, because they need to accelerate this rebuild, and or whatever this phase you want to call it, which is like like a rebuild with your hand tied behind your back when you're dealing with expensive contracts on your book.
basically. So that's kind of what all we have with like the Cards right now. They could still be a playoff contender, but that's one of those like you pulled the right pieces and you got a head coach and an offensive coordinator, or I think the offensive coordinator is still the same, but you got a head coach that's like in lieu of what they want to get out of the team. It could be a resurgence for the Cardinals, or they might need another year, but that's just what I see right now for them.
Yeah, and we've talked about it a lot too, where usually, like we were talking about this last week too, I think, where what do they hire first, a coach or a head or a GM, right?
Hmm.
And so they went the route of going for a GM first. Um, Maybe that stems from having broader organizational problems, and maybe that's where they're coming from.
Sometimes,
Often,
sometimes the GM wants to bring in a head coach or something like that too. I understand, like if you bring a head coach and they can choose who their GM is. Sometimes it's the other way around too. So if that's who their GM is, again, we got to just see. It depends on who that head coach is.
yeah, and that's what it comes down to, because you can have like GMs like I think Pete Carroll wanted John Schneider to come in as GM, so
Hmm.
they hired Pete, and then Pete had his say on who the GM is. But then you also have GMs like Howie Roseman that have been through a couple of head coaches, and has always been a good exec for an organization. So it's a people trait, as well as like how well you are at your job.
Yep. Yep.
So that maybe we don't know which kind of GM he is yet. So we'll see how the head coaching search goes for them.
Hmm.
But speaking of head coaching searches, we can rattle through some of these pretty quickly. An update on the Sean Payton watch. So multiple organizations, the ones that we've harped on, that have open head coaching positions. Looks like they've requested an interview with from the Saints, and those teams are the Broncos, Cards, Texans, and Panthers.
Hmm.
The one team that hasn't requested an interview yet. So the reason why this is an update is because now Panthers have um, added their name to the request list on top of Broncos, Cards, and Texans, who have already requested. But one team hasn't actually requested an interview with Sean Payton, is the Indianapolis Colts. And what do you think about that?
Eh, I don't. I mean, the Colts is just like a dumpster truck, and like I'm sorry for all the players that are currently there right now, because if they can't even figure out their quarterback, let alone a head coach, I don't know what to tell you. Like the future of that team.
When I saw that, and I was like, man, just think about them running a full year with Jeff Saturday, because that was a dumpster fire of an
If
experience.
he
I
still
mean,
has the job, I'm gonna look at them and be like, "Are you stupid?" Like,
yeah, I mean, that's at that point you're looking at we've talked about what a good owner and a bad owner is in the NFL, and this is an example of a bad owner who's just trying to put his friend in at a position, or someone that he knows his guy, and you would
mhm.
expect it out of guys like Jerry Jones and that kind of thing as
He
well, where
only
he's
brought you one win, I
yeah,
believe.
out of what, 8
7
games,
games, yeah. He
yeah,
only brought him one win, and it was just like, okay,
against the Raiders.
Raiders, right? Speaking on Raiders, because this came up like during the week of with Derek Carr stepping away from the team, and that as the team as a whole is gonna like get rid of him because they have a way out with his contract. Like if a team were apparently to trade for Derek Carr, eh, how much you're gonna have to owe him for 3 years is basically like top QB money. That that is pretty much like 32.9 million base salary in 23, 41.9 in 24, and 41.2 million in 25. All of them have like a 100K workout bonus, and you
Man, I
would
want a bonus for just working out. I feel like I actually have motivation to go
there's
work out.
roster bonuses where people are getting paid 6 million just for making the roster, man. Like that's
Uh,
wild to me. Like that's pretty cool. And again, the NFL is like a good place to like jumpstart families and stuff like that, as well as getting people out. So either way, though, with Derek Carr's contract, if someone were to I don't think that's why I don't think a trade's going to happen unless like they just know for sure Derek Carr is the truth. For them in like a short for 3 years or something. So some people thought the Colts, but I thought they said that they're not trying to do like the vet band aid on like their position and stuff like that. Plus, I don't even know if they have the cap space for them.
yeah, yeah, I don't know, man. I think they're still paying quarterbacks that don't play for them. So
Yeah, that's wild too, right? So, I mean, that's all I had on that one. Other stuff that came in, Ravens, they signed a star on the team.
yeah, we kind of it's kind of been expected, but it wasn't the star a lot of people thought was going to be the first one to get a
It
contract. Who got
was
their deal?
not Lamar, but Roquan Smith. That man got himself a 5 year, $100 million deal. Only 45 million of it is guaranteed. So, I mean, like that's
Congrats
about
on getting your money, buddy. That's
yeah.
that's what you got to say. If you're a linebacker and you're getting paid that good money, then more power to you because we saw deals like Bobby Wagner was getting and stuff like
Mhm.
that where we're looking at it.
His was more guaranteed focus, if I remember correctly, more so than like having a big number on top. Because like
Mm.
a lot of the times you have to like work your way to get that full 100. In this case, the full 100 million or the full
Mhm.
salary offered. So a
But
lot of it. Then,
in
oh, go
terms
ahead.
of like where all the money goes on defense, the players that get the most are usually pass rushers.
Hmm.
Second one up is secondary players, and then linebackers are often the unsung heroes that don't get the money. So he got his money, so more power to him.
Yeah, if I remember
But
correctly, CJ Mosley was the one that helped break the linebacker market back on with the Jets when the Jets signed him. Because I remember that deal, and that kind of kickstarted like the linebacker market some more. So regardless,
a lot of teams are running 3-4s. We know they're important, but what do you think this means for like the Lamar situation?
I don't know because a lot of like obviously the meme pages were going off and saying like your seasons is kind of going down spiral and you paid your linebacker but not your quarterback as of yet. They're gonna pay him. The one thing that people need to also remember is that this is a franchise again that has not had a quarterback in a while post Joe Flacco. I mean, technically they got Lamar after and stuff like that, but they're not used to paying big money for like a quarterback now. They're just used to having a quarterback for a long period of time. And you've seen how Joe Flacco's contract was kind of getting and how they got out of it eventually after that Super Bowl season.
Because
So,
Joe Flacco stunk it up after they won the chip.
oh yeah, it was
That was the
bad.
reason behind it.
Yeah, he basically just said like I had my, not saying that's against him as a person or a player, but it's just like he's like as a joke like yeah, I got that Super Bowl. I don't need to do that much now next year. I still got a contract. Oh wait, where'd it go? I'm cut. What do you mean?
Why?
But
Why?
I'm
Why
not
he didn't?
elite. You mean I'm not elite anymore? But
Yeah, because that was the thing is that people were saying that he wasn't elite, and then he won a chip, and then they were like he's elite, and then he got paid like he's elite, and then he promptly went back to
he played
not
a
being
full
elite.
season, I think, with them, and then they let him go after that first season, if I remember correctly. So either way, they're not. This franchise is not used to paying someone big money. They don't know how to maybe structure a contract to help both sides and stuff like that. So that's one thing you're gonna have to look at going forward, right? And I guess I would say like speaking of like some former Ravens players, everyone knows Ed Reed's about to be a future head or is the head coach for Bethune Cookman. There's been an update on the saga with that though. So for those that do not know, initially he had like a couple of Instagram videos, either live, yeah, there were Instagram lives out, and the short of it was he had issues with a lot of things. He had issues with like how the campus facilities were, how I think he also it got to the point where it was kind of like the petty complaint, like he actually had some crucial complaints for what was happening with the campus and stuff like that. And for those that do not know, Bethune-Cookman is a HBCU in Florida, so you already know that like as a HBCU we're already screwed out of a lot of the money that other schools are getting in terms to do extra things that you expect to see like on a PWI or a predominantly white institution. So, and he was actually calling out the really good ones. It just kind of got egregious and a little bit out of hand when he kind of started talking about like, I'm out here with the football player, we're just picking up trash on like the yard and stuff like that. Da, 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 da. And I'm just like, after a while, it's like you had good stuff. You had us there in the first half, but then like you kind of went off the rails in the second one.
You're kind of losing us here, champ.
Right, because like he kind of just started like, not like cussing out particular people or anything like that. Just just kind of getting like he has that passion for football, he passion for his players and stuff like that. It just kind of got out of hand with what was said on Instagram. He did come out and apologize to the Bethune Cookman family, and of course he talked about getting with the AD or the athletic director and stuff like that. So it's one of those things where like you could have took that up with the AD and like behind the scenes and had a better way of doing that. But I know that he was just coming out like just hot, like I don't like oh, and the biggest one was his office was not even cleaned when he came into it. Like how you just get like everyone thinks that as a college football head coach, you get the head coach position. Not saying you're going to have an office like, like Alabama or anything like that because of what they've done over there. But like you at least just expect the basic stuff, right? So it was one of the things where like he walked in on his office, it was dirty. He said it wasn't clean. That was one of his main complaints and stuff like that. It's like, how are you going to do all of this? How are you going to, he's like, how are you going to tell me that we're all here? Like we're all here to end this together, but like you can't even do the simple things and stuff like that. So
If
they had some
anything,
talks outside, and he made his apologies. That's pretty much all it is, right? Around it at this point in time.
yeah, but if anything, it's important that he is vocal about these kind of things as well, because HBCUs need to have their need to sometimes you need to have the light shined on problems to to act on them, right? Like you got
Hmm.
to see the problems that are out there. And so, if those programs are not taking their are not being taken care of properly, even when with like the basics of, having your desk cleaned before you start your job. Because
Hmm.
I mean, just imagine any job that you start, you would hope that any job you start your station is clean right before you start, right? But
Yeah.
shining a light on those problems is hopefully a good first step into, shaping up that program, because we know Ed
Wasn't
Reed
good.
is
It
like,
wasn't a decent or good first PR step, if you will,
yeah,
but
that's fair. Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah, and that's sometimes I think there's that old expression, all press is good press.
Hmm.
And I think this is probably the first step into maybe improving the situation where, it gets like that community awareness of people that are passionate for the HBCU programs to get them
Hmm.
up and going, to see like, all right, your programs are derelict. You need to actually get them into reputable standards, and that'll help attract talent, getting your facilities in order.
Hmm.
Because if you're out there playing on something that looks like a high school football field, meanwhile Alabama's out there with like, state of the art facilities. I'm not saying you need to have an Alabama type facilities, but have the bare minimum.
All that
And it
comes
we
with winning games, national championships, bringing in money, and you'll eventually get those top tier to keep it top tier. But that's just
and
how
you,
it usually is.
to jumpstart it, these programs are doing the right thing. Like when Deion Sanders went to Jackson State, like, having someone with that media presence already, brings that sort of attention that you need to bring awareness to,
Oh
anything
yeah.
that's shortcoming.
He actually has a whole personal like production crew because he just released like, well, not just released, but like a little bit earlier late last year he released like a documentary of like the whole thing, like of when he first came in and to when he left and stuff like that. So he was already like all those, if you ever seen like anything on YouTube where you see all these people recording around him and stuff like that, that was already like his Deion Sanders specifically, like his own team getting
Mhm.
stuff together. And hey, I mean, he said I'm going all in. He did. So he got a documentary and stuff out of it. Now him and his son are at Colorado. So we'll see what happens with them as well.
Yeah, I don't have anything else left on Ed Reed. I like Ed Reed as a player, so I'm hoping he does good.
Yeah,
But
same.
you want to go right into the wild card round games?
Yeah, we gotta talk about them, man.
All right, start me
Um,
off.
yeah, Chargers at Jaguars, 31-30 Jaguars. I got that one right. But are we sure the NFL is not rigged? Because that was like a big comeback after the
Dude,
half.
what the fuck was that? Now that we could talk about it in full detail, we talked a little bit about it with Brandon Staley, but Trevor Lawrence started off with 4 picks and a zero QB rating through his first 7 drives. Like this was like very Zach Wilson esque. This is the only way I can describe it. It was that bad. But in his remaining drives, I think his quarterback rating was, I didn't see the exact number. I couldn't find it again, but it was definitely over 140, if not a perfect 148.3, with 4 TDs and 0 picks. How the fuck do you let that happen if you're the Chargers?
I don't know what they
I
did in their second
answer
half.
me, Adam. How did this happen?
The Chargers charged it up.
This is going to become a, they like, if you're a Huskies, and if you're familiar with the Huskies and Cougars rivalry,
Mhm.
Cougars over the years have, flubbed up games, and just making mistakes, and so the adjective "couged it" kind of became a thing. I feel like Chargers are at risk of becoming something similar, where, if someone makes a mistake, they Chargers it.
I mean, yeah, and I think one thing to note is that for the playoffs, I was hearing from like the media and stuff like that that was like the second most like comeback done by a team in the playoffs. So I don't know if you want to be on the tail end of that kind of record, but that's on Brandon Staley right there though too. So granted, you let your offensive coordinator go, but at the same time, you're still in the hot seat yourself. Something's got to shake next season. You have to make a deep playoff run next season for you to keep that job, and not just we made it and we lost again. So.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, everything always comes down to the man in charge, right? That's where all the blame usually ends up, because, it's not the offensive coordinator's fault also that he was hired to be he's part of the hiring decisions, as well as in terms of like who he puts into coaching positions.
Mhm.
But, like we talked about the week 18 decision this year, and how, Mike Williams went down with a neck injury. Joey Bosa got knocked up as well.
Thought I
I heard
saw. I
Joey
thought for Mike Williams it was a back, like a lower back injury and stuff like
That
that.
might have been the
Unless,
case. I just remember he was stretchered off. I thought it was one or the other. And so,
yeah.
I'm not like you said earlier, it's not like one player makes a difference, but, having a big guy like Mike Williams is a good way of hanging on to the football and continue, extending long drives, because when you come down with a 27-0 lead, all you got to do is figure out ways to run out the clock. Austin Eckler didn't get as many yards as, like you said, like he didn't get that many yards. I think he only had like, 40 yards, but two touchdowns. If you can't string together plays, keep the clock running when you're up 27-0, maybe that is on the offensive coordinator. But, the Mike Williams decision was pretty inexcusable if you're
Well,
a Chargers fan.
starting all your starters in the last week when you know
There
you have
was
a
no
playoff game the
consequence for
next
them,
week.
right? There was
I
no
don't
consequence. They wouldn't have gone up or down.
know. That's why a lot of people were looking at that. That's why a lot of people were calling for Staley to kind. That's why you see players standing up for Staley, and you have a lot of people saying he should get out because of like that decision among like the other stuff he's done. So
Yeah.
I
I mean,
don't know.
Herbert,
He got another chance. So
yeah. And that, like, I mean, you think it's his last chance next season? I wouldn't disagree with that, because,
he's in
like,
the hot
Frank,
seat. I'll just say
he's on the
he's part
hot
of
seat.
like him. Mike Vrabel will be on like
Her,
the hot seat in
I
my
mean,
opinion.
Herbert, like I was saying, Herbert, Bosa, Derwin James, they've all voiced their support for Staley. But, you know, if you're an organization, you've essentially wasted prime window years with Justin Herbert's
Yep.
rookie contract. He's going to demand a lot of money very soon, and your ability to build a roster gets significantly harder once that happens. And so, if this is
They
what
only
you're
have
doing
this
right
off
now,
season. This is it. Like this is the
this is
off
it.
season that you need to go. Like they need to go in. Like now, this is their time to go in. They need to go get a new wide receiver that to stretch the field that we talked about earlier. They need to do what
Build
they need to do
offensive
on
line.
defense. Do what they need to do on the defense as well because something happened to where you gave up a 27-0 lead and you lost that game 31-30. So something didn't shake on the defense. So
Yeah. And, I think that's all I had for that game. I think Joey Bosa, I didn't write this down. I didn't look into it too much, because it feels like players are always complaining about officiating. But, one of the headlines that came out of the game is that Joey Bosa was very expletive, or,
yeah,
very
I saw that.
critical of officiating in the NFL. Obviously, he's going to get fined, because, there's no accountability for refs in the league. But, that's something to take away from this as well, is that, frustration is growing with regards to the inconsistencies with officiating across the league. Um,
Hmm.
Side note with regards to that, I can't remember. This was like some small time soccer league, I think, or maybe it was one of the major ones. Maybe it's the German soccer league. Like
Hmm.
a referee blew a decision that ultimately led to, like, the team who was the victim of this bad decision losing the game. The other team won,
Mm.
and that referee was suspended for like 4 games or something like that.
Yeah,
That's
right
a
there,
form of
check.
that's a form of holding a referee accountable. Maybe having that encouragement to, call the game as it is. That'll that maybe that's a way for them to enforce it in the NFL. Obviously, it's a little bit different because they play like 40 games a season in soccer versus
I
18 in a.
I'm still with you that we need some form of like refs being held accountable post game and stuff like that. I mean, you may not be able to change the result of a game, but you can do something to the ref to like, if you know for a fact it was on the ref.
Hit
Because
him.
there, right? But there was times where we all knew even this season where like the ref was the issue, like a
Yeah.
particular ref, and it's not. I'm not saying like, oh, we gotta be careful around these refs and stuff like that, but it really feels like they have a little bit of power, and like the only thing you can do is just shrug and move on to the next game. So.
Yeah, that's all I had for this one.
Yep. Next game we got is Dolphins at Bills, 34-31 Bills, both right. For me, it was just like Dolphins could have had it and Bills are moving on. But it's really weird that, like, hey, Bills, you were losing against like a backup QB. Now, granted, you can't take anything for granted in the league, but like you were low key like losing up against like their third string backup, I
Yeah,
believe,
and
for
I think
the Dolphins.
this was another example of a game that I think Bills came out and so a very early lead. I think they were up 20-0, and they kind of just took the foot off the brake. Josh Allen started making some mistakes. There was a lot of frustration that was growing amongst the players because I
Mhm.
think Josh Allen and I can't remember who else got into a shoving match, and that led to a fight amongst all the players. Like it, I think like you said, Miami had a chance. A lot of the opinions in the landscape kind of put it down to bad clock management towards the end of the game that kind of bit
Yeah.
them. And we all saw the pass that was kind of forced and
It was
almost
flipped
intercepted.
basically, right?
Yeah, and so that could have. I mean, Dolphins could have come out with an upset on this one. So my question to you is: should Bills fans be worried about how close of a game this was?
I mean, they
Could it
probably have
be?
all their trust, like with the season that they're having after the whole Damar Hamlin thing too. I think they're just like take a win where you take this win and keep it pushing because we ain't, let's not talk about it until we either lose or like we just go all the way. Because I know the Bills feel like they need to win everything because it's been a long time coming. That's why I kind of favor the Bills going to the Super Bowl personally, but yeah, and like the other thing was funny enough about the game real quick was that Mike McDaniel he was vaping on like the sideline too.
What was I saw the headline? Was that an actual thing,
It's just like, like you just got to see like the puff of smoke. It's like okay, all
dude?
right. I mean, it's not like it's against it. I don't know what's in it, but hey, who knows, right? So if
It,
you can do it on the sideline, he's not a
it's
player.
it's funny because there's been so many memes around Mike McDaniel this season about how he just looks like he kind of rocked up and said he was the head coach, and no one questioned it, kind of thing,
Yeah, every
or like
day,
he's like acting like his dad's the manager.
right? He's a cool, quirky kind of like coach, in my opinion. I feel like the like Miami needed this to like jumpstart what they got going. They already have like a lot of weapons and stuff. They just need to retain who they need to retain, that core, and then just get it together on the offense while also kind of sharpening that defense some more. Personally,
We've seen time and time again where guys come out of the Patriots organization and try to bring the Patriots way to whatever organization they move to,
hmm
and it doesn't come with any success whatsoever. Like Matt Patricia at Lions, Brian Flores at Dolphins, Joe Judge at Giants. Like would
Bill
pick your
O'Brien at the Houston Texans. You can't
Bill
forget that
O'Brien at the
one.
Texans. Yeah, man, that man tried to be Bill Belichick himself.
Yeah.
But then whichever stint of Josh McDaniels. It's kind of like people try to bring that culture to an organization. So, and usually they end up getting a lot of resistance from the players, the organization itself.
hmm
And so,
hmm
they needed a guy like Mike McDaniels to come in. And so it's good to see that they're kind of having fun again.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Miami Dolphins they needed that. They needed some type of jump start with what's been happening with the past few years with their franchise. So, hey, we're all for it, and hopefully they make do on it with where Tua is with his contract and stuff like that. But another thing is like, how is Tua going to be later on in life? If not years down the line in the league with those what was it, three head injuries, concussions he had this season
I
alone,
just want,
three.
on a human level, that man needs to get right. That's all I can
You
say.
can't really get right except just stop playing football. That's the only way to get right because you're going to have these issues come in later on, and we've seen many a player go through their stint, whether from the college level to the NFL level. Um,
We were
almost
talking
nobody.
about before we started the podcast. I was looking on Twitter and I saw Antonio Brown was trending, and I was like, oh man, what now? And he leaked some video, some explicit video on Snapchat or something like
Of
that.
course he did, because
But
Antonio Brown. But like he's one of the few people that like a lot of people say like that one play where he got cracked.
Vontae's perfect messed that man
Berficet,
up
I
for
think
life.
it's Berficet, right?
Perfect.
Is it perfect? Okay, cool, cool, cool. All right, cool.
Yeah, I
But
think
yeah,
that man ended, his mentality, because everybody regarded Antonio Brown as being like this very polite, very likable guy until that hit. And, after that, he probably compounded it with, extra head injuries, because after you take a hit like that, like we've talked about, you're more susceptible to get head injuries. But after that happened, um, you can't, it's
I
hard
would
to get
I
right.
wouldn't say he didn't have his issues with the Steelers then, because Mike Tomlin mentioned about like working with his like those first what 2 or 3 years with AB was pretty good, but like he was doing a lot of like like kind of maintaining his personality, but of course it got worse over time until it started happening like right like tail end, and then of course we all know the story after that. So
Hmm.
still looking out for that man. Hopefully he just gets that PC needs personally. But
Yep.
on to the next game, because this one's an interesting one that happened. You got the Giants at Vikings. The Giants pulled it off with 31-24, and you got that one right. So you have anything on that one?
Brian Double is officially the coolest fat guy in New York since Biggie.
Oh,
Because
come on.
that's what people have been saying. He's the coolest fat dude since the notorious Big himself
Oh my
in New
gosh.
York.
He's really good at what he does. That's who you compare to with like the Chargers head coach. Like Brian Dobble knows how to get the most out of all his players. Every single one, including Danny Dimes himself.
Yeah,
So
and this was an interesting game, because the game plan itself, they put it on Danny Dimes' shoulders. And we've been saying this whole season, like, this team lives and dies on the back of Saquon Barkley. And this was one of those games where they put it on Danny Dimes, and he came through, and you
I
can't
think
take that
that's
away
just
from him.
having like people behind him that support him and stuff like that. His team, family, and all that stuff. I think that helped, especially the confidence levels with how this season went. So hey, at this point, why not us? That's you can kind of just see that from most of these teams out here. But
I'm just glad
I
that
personally knew that the Vikings defense was going to cost them at some point, though,
yeah, I mean, it's been kind of written on the wall with how many one score wins they've had, or maybe it was less than one score wins,
or just
or really
egregious,
like a field
terrible
goals.
numbers in defense and how many yards they allowed
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Like it was egregious. Like you knew it was going to catch them in like the playoffs at some point.
Like, we know Vikings were fortunate in many instances with many games, and often were regarded as kind of like, or at least I called them, the biggest fakers to make the playoffs.
They
And
just had a high octane offense. They just didn't have their defense. Just was like flip floppy and how
yeah,
they performed.
and so
So
I'm glad that they're out, because I would have hated a team to just kind of fake it till they made it, all the way to the Super Bowl. Um, but
do you think they need to
that's
move
my
on from
opinion.
Kirk Cousins though at this point? Because like I don't know how many other chances Kirk Cousins like. It's not that Kirk Cousins isn't good or anything, but it's like I feel like the ceiling with Kirk at this point.
And I think, to be fair, their ceiling was on the offensive side of the ball. They were doing pretty dang well,
It wasn't
in
well
terms of,
enough.
wasn't well enough. But football is played across three phases. We've talked about this time and time again, and so getting right on defense was probably their first priority.
True.
Now, maybe if you want to continue on with Kirk Cousins, you can. Just, he's not your franchise quarterback; he's your bridge quarterback. Just
At this point,
the
he
narrative might change, but yeah,
because I think one thing about Kirk is he was the one that helped start it up like the full. He was I think the first player to get the first fully guaranteed
fully
contract.
guaranteed contract. Yeah,
I think it was it was a 3 year 85 million contract he got before. I
I
remember
th-
that one,
I
and
think so.
my God, that man made so much money. Especially he made a lot of money from the Commanders back in the day because they kept
Yeah,
franchise tagging him, and he
I
was just
remember
like,
that.
"That's guaranteed money for me. Why not?"
Yeah,
And because you like that, and all that stuff. So, we'll see what happens. I don't. That's like my little catchphrase at this point because I don't know what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins. It's more of that like I feel like I don't think he's going to be gone, but I know that in the back of their heads they're like, okay, so quarterback, what are we doing at quarterback?
yeah. I think they're gonna have to at some point start looking towards the future, and Kirk Cousins is probably not going to be part of that picture.
Yeah. So next game we got was the Ravens at Bengals, 24-17 Bengals. We both got this one right. For me it was a pretty close match, and then of course you had J.K. Dobbins at the after the game talking about how Huntley shouldn't have had the ball in his hands. They should have gave it to him and they would have had
Mhm.
that touchdown, but shoulda coulda woulda at that point.
I think, on the other side of it, dude, like, I mean, I'm a big stan for the Bengals, and so, the fact that this was a close game wasn't that alarming for me. Ravens are easily one of the best defenses in the AFC, if not the best in the AFC.
They're also division rivals, aren't they? So
Yeah, they're division rivals as well, and we know how weird those games can get. But
mhm.
Hubbard's, 98-yard fumbled return for a touchdown was wild. I remember I saw it live, and I just saw the ball pop backwards right into Hubbard's hands, and he just started running in the opposite direction. Brief moment, he was confused, and that ended up being the difference maker. But that's playoff football. I think the more alarming thing for me is that their left tackle Jonah Williams dislocated his kneecap and is out. So I'm a big stand for the Bengals, but these O line injuries are kind of piling up, and it's gonna come back to bite them come the off come next round.
Yeah, hopefully they can, in that case, they can just get something to shore up that O line because that's kind of like the reason why they lost the Super Bowl last time. So
Yeah,
last
now
year,
you're now
so
you're just basically running it back with what you had last year. Because Eli,
basically,
I remember one of the other things I took out of this was Eli Apple was getting blown up on some of these plays, and it's not it's gonna come back to bite them, and when they're playing a non-second stringer at quarterback, Tyler
that's
Huntley.
what I'm saying. Like Eli Apple, everyone knows is not like a good starter, but I feel like they just didn't have any other choice because they didn't have a high enough pick to go get one, nor there wasn't like a corner out on like in the free agency market demanding a top dollar. So
Yeah, for sure.
what can you do? Next one, and it makes me throw up saying it, but the Cowboys at Bucks, 31-14 Cowboys. Fuck them boys. But for me, it's just I hope they lose the next round because I do not want to hear any of it with the Cowboys going. No, I'm not a Cowboys fan just because I'm in Dallas. No, never. Um, and my only thing is just at this point is like, is TB12 gonna leave? If so, where to next? And a lot of people have been saying Raiders, but it's still up in the air unless he just says, not many people want to
The
just
man
retire
the
after
man
that.
threw away his family to run it back with Tampa Bay. I think he's already got nothing to lose at this point.
Yeah, he keeps going on these 1 year deals and stuff like that to keep it pushing. But hey, it is what it is. You got anything on the game?
No, I mean, I thought this was a weird one. I remember one of the things that I took away from it was not related to the game itself. It was just an awkward moment where Joe Buck had one of the most all time one of the worst all time jinxes when he said that Tom Brady never throws a pick in the end zone. And lo and behold, the very next play he throws a pick in the end zone, and that kind of just set the tone for what we were going to get from the Bucks offense. And from the Bucks defense, it just kind of seemed lifeless against the Cowboys. Right before we started this, I saw a tweet that from Matt Berry that said that Todd Bowles is the Nathaniel Hackett of defensive coaches, and I was like, oof,
Oh,
that
that's a
is
that's a
that is a
tall one. Like
harsh. That is not an accurate
What
analogy
is
to draw.
like first of all, his how is Todd Bowles a Nathaniel Hackett when they actually went to the playoffs compared to the Broncos?
Nathaniel, fair enough.
The head coach didn't even make it throughout the whole season, man. And that same head coach that they're talking about had to hire someone else to help with decision making. Make it
Yeah,
make sense.
make
But
it make
okay.
sense. It's like they needed to hire another head coach for this head coach when with Hackett. But
We
I
have
think
two
that
head coaches, so we have no head coaches.
yeah, one of the funny things that kind of came out of this game was that Brett Mayer missed an NFL playoff record of 4 extra points in this game, and he's currently at risk of being cut. We've seen how close these games are. There's a lot of rumors turning that he might get cut. Do you think the Cowboys should do it?
If you need a kick, I mean, the thing is, do they have another kicker in the wings, or do they have to go
Yeah,
out and get
it's
one? Right. So you're going to probably have to go out and get one, and then with less than a week, train up that kicker to be ready. Not saying you cannot say that kickers is an easy position for all you out there, but at the same time, like it's a little bit of like, do we stay or do we go? Because like if you're telling me your extra points and you missed four of those, I don't know if I can trust you. Like, if
that.
anything, if they keep them, they keep them. But after this whole season, I think they're going to get rid of them.
I mean, there's been a lot of support for Brett Maher too. I think he's like 100% for kicks over like 50 yards or 60 yards or something like that. Like he's nailed multiple 60-yard kicks this season.
Hmm
And so, like, there's a lot of support for him. I mean, everybody has a bad day. This just happened to be a really bad day for him. I don't think you can go out there and cut him because, you're in the playoffs. You need
He may have to have a talk with a certain Cowboys owner about his future at this point, since that man
yeah, that has all the power.
has all the power, technically speaking. So that's
I don't think the Cowboys should do it. It's you're at that point where you don't want to add another wild card into your team, and you want to you
that's
want to you
true.
want to you want to be consistent coming in and week out.
But yeah, that's pretty much it for all the games. So next up we got the round games. So if you want to run us through those,
Yeah, let's run through these really quick. So we got Jaguars at Chiefs.
I'm going Jags. I'm still
You're
on
gonna
chaos. I'm in
you're
chaos
chaos
central.
chaos central. I'm gonna go with Chiefs, but I wouldn't be surprised. The only reason being is I'm not so confident on Chiefs defense, but we'll see.
Hey, this is the time when you should be like with the Jags, in my opinion, because you were like, "Oh, I'm not really a Chiefs fan. I'm a Bengals fan." But like here
Yeah,
you are, Chiefs.
yeah, but I mean we'll see because
Yeah,
Patrick Mahomes.
fair,
Giants.
fair.
We got Giants at Eagles. Who you got? You're going to go chaos
Ooh,
again, aren't you?
I, ca- I'm gonna go Eagles this time on this one.
That's
That
a
one.
fair one.
It's like I can see it. I can see the struggle and stuff like that. But yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's next? What we got
Bengals at
next?
Bills.
Bengals at Bill. Ooh, this is the big one.
I'm gonna. It's the rematch, and so
Ooh,
I think
Bengals.
I have it down as Bengals, but with all the
I'll
offensive
go
line
Bills
injuries,
because okay, one, I know Bengals are just hungry for a Super Bowl because they were there, but
yeah,
Bills are even hungrier because they got ousted because of the. They even changed a dang rule of giving another team a second chance from the Bills Chiefs game. So I feel like the Bills are definitely hungry for one, but we'll see. It's going to be a really good. That's the one. If I have to only watch one game, it'll be that one for sure.
yeah, and like I was saying, like Bengals. I mean, they're my team for the AFC, but like I would be, with all the O line injuries is piling up, it's gonna be tough.
Yeah,
Next up, we had
facts.
Cowboys at Niners,
Niners.
and fuck
Screw the
them boys,
Cowboys. Screw the,
fuck them boys.
fuck them boys.
But okay, those four we have four very solid week games lined up for us, as you would hope come playoff time. The only way it wouldn't be solid if Vikings made it made it to the divisional round games, but I'm just a little bitter. But anyways, that wraps up all of our games. Any last thoughts from you, Adam?
Yeah. For me, it's pretty much just like who would have thought the Jags and the Giants after the season they've been having for like
Who
the
would have
past
thunk?
two or yeah, the past 2 or 3 seasons, all of a sudden they're just in the divisional round this season, you know? That's a bit like surprising, and honestly I just love the fresh new teams that are getting into the playoffs besides the same old teams, because be honest here, you're bored seeing Patriots or Chiefs always going and all that type of stuff, right? So
Yeah,
that was one thing. The other thing is you know, again, we are on YouTube. Come see us. Come see us on the YouTube channel. You get to see our beautiful, handsome mugs in action and stuff like that. And add a comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, please. And even for of course, if you still want to just do the typical, podcast only, hey, put us on in the background on YouTube. We don't mind. We
yeah.
could still be your Apple, your Spotify's, and all that stuff without it. But hey, it's up to you on that
We
one.
just
But
want you
please
to
come
join the
support.
community.
Yep.
That's all we want.
Yeah. So what about you, man?
Like we've been saying, it's been a roller coaster of a season. This was our opportunity to see what we have out there, see where the organization is heading. In terms of good things that we have lined up for us, we have a lot of draft capital to work with. We made a lot of progress this season with like new faces that came in. I'm just really
Mhm.
looking forward to continuing this journey next season. And
Facts.
like you said, seeing new teams um, work their way through the playoffs instead of our old, the teams that we're always used to seeing used to seeing in the playoffs, like the
Mhm.
Packers and all those guys. But yeah, that's all it for me.
All right, then. That's all. That's all from us here at Mistraps. Thank you for hey, for all you people that have been consistent in listening to us yap in your ear. Thank you. This is to you, for the real ones out there. But please, share with your friends though, and tell them to put 5 stars on all of the podcast platforms, and please give us a thumbs up and a share and all that good stuff on the YouTube channel. Again, it's the YouTube channel, people. Hey, how you doing? It'll be the second video going out. So yeah, just all of our handles are at Mist Reps. So find us on Twitter, Instagram. and just hopefully we see you again next week. Peace.